It's a beat though, someday laugh. What's up? What's up, all? How you doing? What's happening out there? Got a little coffee on the go here. Some Intelligentsia El Diablo beans this week. Pretty darn good. With a little bit of the coconut almond creamer from Trader Joe's, which is vanilla. And I don't usually go for the flavored stuff, but if you're in the mood for a little something, it's not so bad. Pretty good. You don't need to add any sugar then, that's for sure. Oh, it's delicious. Just fine. What happened this week? I just got back from Oregon. Did a kind of a one-off, sort of the beginning of the Five for Fighting Summer Tour. Tour proper really starts next week, around Thursday, but in Minnesota. But this was like a one-off that we flew up and back to do. So that's always fun and challenging. Got to be able to fly with everything and backline stuff and all that good stuff. And it went well. I blew a fuse on my Matrix power amp. That was a bummer. Ended up using the rental backline Marshall head as a power amp only mono into a cab just for my on stage monitoring experiences. Just barely. It's not even necessary really. I could have just come. I mean, it was using the quad Cortex, right? So I was coming out of that XLRs to the house. And then I feed a second set of outputs to the power amp and onstage cab just for some onstage sound. And where was I? Oh, yeah. So it's just to give me a little bit of vibe on stage. And if I want to pull out the in-ears or whatever I can, and if I want to get a little feedback, I can, that kind of thing. But anyway, so no big deal. I just ran mono for the onstage cab and it worked totally fine. But it was a bit of a bummer. It's always something. Friedman makes fun of me all the time because he says, if it's going to break, it's going to break for you. Like your stuff always breaks, you know, there's always something in my rig, and it'll be some weird stuff too that goes wrong in my rig. It won't be like the obvious, oh, you popped a, fuse in your tube amp or whatever, because the tubes it's always like like my switcher or something goes awry, something weird, but anyway, we had fun. It was a great gig, turned out really good, everything was fine, wonderful, and the tour starts next week. So what are you guys talking about? Let's see. Somebody says Five for Fighting is back. Yeah, we're doing he's been doing, tours. John Andrazik is Five for Fighting, really. He's been doing tours most recently with like string quartets, and he'll show up, play piano and a little acoustic guitar and with a string quartet, sometimes a full orchestra. And he's been enjoying that. But I guess he wanted to do a, putting the band back together kind of tour, guitar, bass, drums, rock band sort of tour. And yeah, so we got all rehearsed up, and we're gonna hit it. So it'll be all over the Midwest and the East Coast, kind of for the next few weeks. If you want to come out and see us, if you're in North Carolina, or you're in Georgia, or you're in Ohio, or you're in Indiana, or all these kinds of places, a little bit of I think we're playing Long Island. We're doing a gig close to Boston, stuff like that. It'll be really fun. Did you see Neil gave Pete's guitar, like the great Neil Sean from Journey, like on Instagram? He did. He's a really nice guy. I like him. He said nice things about my guitar, so that's cool. Somebody else was asking if they started shipping yet. They're building, I think. I don't know if they've shipped yet, but if anybody's interested in the guitar, the best thing to do is ask a local dealer, because they can, as far as when it gets out there, they order them, and then they get a kind of a place in line as far as the build goes, and they can pretty much down to at least within a few weeks determine when the guitar is going to arrive at a SUR dealer. So it'll be different for every dealer depending on when they order and stuff like that. A couple super chats there. Stealth Parrot says Five for Fighting tour starts Friday. Yeah, kind of Friday proper. I believe the gig, we do something on Thursday, but I think it's kind of a private thing, I think. And then Friday is kind of the proper first Minnesota gig. I actually fly out Wednesday. But your favorite multi-effects processor? Headrush, Fractal, Neural. There's so many good ones, man. Favorite, it's tough. It's like, I'm really enjoying using the Neural right now. I'll give the blah, blah, blah. What's my formulate your thoughts, Pete? If anybody watched Britt play with Demi Lovato on Kimmel last week, and watch the bass player. Her name's Leanne. She's a great bass player. Listen to her bass tone. It's just awesome. And she's using an HX Stomp. It's like 450 or whatever, this little thing. And that's the sound. And it sounds so rocking in the mix. It's like, when I got to ask her what she's doing for her bass tone. Like what, are you running a dual chain? Or it's an HX Stomp though. So you can't do a dual chain, can you? You can't even do a parallel thing. So, because there's only one processor, right? So it's whatever she's doing, man. As far as the bass sound, it sounds great. There's so many good things out there now. The Boss stuff, the similar size, I think it's GT1000 or whatever. It's this big, multi-effects. That thing's amazing. I mean, it's so powerful in a little thing. I really enjoy using the Neural these days. I'm just really the ease of use and the touchscreen and the way it's laid out. I've gone very used to using it, and I quite like it. So that works well for me. So much good stuff, though, So let's see. Love the deep dive EVH video. But what would you recommend for using for an EVH sound with a guitar sim? Can't use an amp, but I find I spend more time trying to get the sound than playing. Yeah, that's a problem. That whole, like, you find yourself tweaking. I mean, man, there's so many good, Dweezil seems to get really close with the Axe effects. I've heard guys get really close with the Kemper. I think I can get really, really close with, if you watched me do it with the quad, I used a capture that I made of the SL68, tweaked it with some delays and a bit of reverb, and you smack a phaser and a flanger in front, and bit of Echoplex, and that sounds pretty damn good too. So there's a lot of ways to get there. I would say just try and get close, and then focus on the playing. Forget about it, and focus on the playing, because what you find is then you'll get used to the sound, and then the playing comes into focus. And find a good Marshall Plexi on 10. There's a bunch of them out there. For Neural, I'm sure there's some out there. The model in the Neural works quite well. The Plexi, the 100 or the 50, and then if you dial up the, I like the 90s Greenback 412 cab sim. Personally, that's my favorite one in that box for that sound, and kind of overall, it's just a great. Sounds like a Greenback cab. It sounds good. That's the sound I like, is a main sort of, one-stop shop sort of cabinet tone. If you dial that up with their Plexi and, maybe just, turn everything on 10 and then dial back a little bit from there if you want to tweak it, and put a phaser and flanger in front. I haven't tried in the Neural, there's now a Phase 95 model. So I got to give that a try, but it just came out in the latest software update, firmware update, I should say. So I got to give that a try and see how that sounds. The flanger is the tough one. I don't know how close their flanger is, or if they have an EVH flanger in there. And I don't think there's one in there yet. And that's always the one where, like, the real EVH flange, even just with the button pushed in on the newer one, it just sounds perfect for that. So I've still got on my little Quad Cortex pedal board a original Phase 90 and a flanger, because I was doing the Van Halen thing for a minute there and those pedals are just no brainers. So, but anyways, if that didn't confuse you, I don't know if I helped very much, but you can get close, man, with I would say on your various modelers, if you're going to use a Helix, you could use the Plexi, but my favorite kind of dirty amp sim in the Helix is the Placator, which is the Friedman BE kind of model. That'd probably be where I'd start, just for an easy, use that, and use a Celestion IR of a Greenback, maybe in a 412, load that up. In a Quad Cortex, either find a capture of a Plexi or use the internal, Plexi, and turn everything on 10, and, either the 50 or 100 watt, try them both, see which one you like. In a Kemper, there's this guy named Top Jimmy, I think, that makes some good profiles that are Van Halen kind of profiles with everything baked in. If you do any one of those three and then spend some time on the playing mainly, you know, just add the pedals in front or whatever, add a little bit of reverb and echo if you want it. And then the most important thing is that it's in your hands. Eagles tour. I don't have anything to do with the Eagles. I've only toured with Don, and it's been a number of years since I've done that. But last gig I played with him, I think, was 2018, kind of a one-off thing. So no, I don't. With Vince Gill around, they don't need me. You know, plus Stuart Smith. You know, yeah, I've never done anything with the Eagles, but did you audition for the Eagles? No, the Eagles is its own. You know, that basically Don's touring band when I was a part of it was the Eagles without Timothy and Joe and Glenn. The touring group otherwise was Don's band. I mean, with Scott Crago on drums and Stuart Smith and Michael Thompson on keys and Will on keys, as well as the MD, my buddy. They're all my buddies, but Will I knew first way back. And they tour with the Eagles as well. And then basically with the Eagles, yeah, you add the other Eagles folks, which was, of course, Glenn, Joe, and Timothy. Well, Glenn passed away. So when Glenn passed away, they've now got Vince Gill, who is really a unique, just an unbelievable musician, you know, singer and guitar player. And I think that just, they couldn't have, I mean, you know, Glenn Fry's like got an iconic voice. He wrote amazing songs. He passes away. What do you do? Well, Vince Gill is like, how could you find anybody that's even more, you know, suited or appropriate to kind of, nobody's going to fill the shoes, but he's a different, you know, it's a little bit like bringing something like Michael McDonald into the Doobies. You bring in somebody that's just so augments the group, right? And it's fascinating. It's like, he's such an amazing singer and guitar player, and by all accounts, just a lovely guy. So, yeah, that was brilliant. And then of course, Glenn's son, his name's Deacon, I think, right? He comes out as well occasionally and sings and plays guitar. And so, you know, it seemed very graceful the way that they moved after Glenn passing away. How do you lose a member like that and then continue on? And they, I don't know. I think I did a really nice job of finding a way to kind of honor the music and his legacy and you know, to just kind of transition into a different era. So there was probably a moment where I'm only guessing, I don't know, but there's probably a moment where I'm sure Don is like, is this even going to work? Like, do we continue? Do we stop? Do we whatever? What do we do? And then you try it and you go out there with Vince and it's just like, this is kind of brilliant, you know, like it definitely works. So having said that, I've never seen them live. I've only seen videos and stuff like that. I've still, after playing with Don for like 5-6 years, I've never seen, as an audience member, a solo Don Henley or Eagles show. I've only been on stage, so with Don. But anyways, digging my Halo delay, says Steve. How are you setting it up in the quad? So I do a similar thing in the quad where I just kind of listened to it in the Halo, and it's a quarter note and an eighth note, dotted eighth, I think, and they cascade into one another. So I put the quarter note first, I think. I don't know if that's the way that Andy would do it or not, but I've got the quarter note echo happening first, then the eighth note echo happening in series after it, and they cascade into one another and kind of do this beautiful thing. And I add a little bit of mod, roll the high end off down to maybe about 3K or something like that on the low pass filter, roll off a little bit on the high pass filter as well. That's it. Okay, let's see here. What else we got here? Head down to the bottom of the chat. Oh, I put out a video this week I just wanted to mention on the Ruby. That's what I was looking for. The Ruby pedal from UA that I shot out at Sweetwater at Gearfest. And I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but it was a fun conversation with James Santiago about AC30s. I learned things, you You know, got a new appreciation for the vibrato channel in an AC30 that I didn't have before. They did such a nice job on that in the pedal, and it's a really usable tone. With my friend Corey Congiulio as well playing guitar. He was great. Anyway, yeah. Did anyone see Joe Satriani's new G4 announcement video? I didn't. Did anybody see that? I haven't seen that. I should check it out, I guess. G4 is kind of it's interesting. He's kind of moved it into more of a kind of an educational sort of format, hasn't he? Where it's like a sort of a clinic thing that you can go, and it looks like he's got a lot of great players. I can't remember, but it was quite a hell of a lineup of if you haven't seen it, you know, it's in January. I would love to go to something like that at some point, but I'm going to be on the road in January, so yeah. Let's see. Greenback. Pete Greenback BS Creamback. I'm not sure what that means. Greenback BS Greenback. But I want to know. I do. How do you set the placator for an EVH tone? You know, really, you can start kind of with everything on 5 and just tweak from there. I generally, I'll add, just like I would on the real amp, to the treble up to about 6, maybe a little bit more presence, depending. If you feel like you want a little bit, you know, fill in a little hotter sound, bring in the mids just a little up to, but generally it's going to be everything between kind of 4 and 6.5 or something, I would say, on the controls. And that's it, you know, and you can get, that's just a good starting place. I mean, that's a good kind of like, it's a little more modern take, but the BE sounds excellent in the, sorry, they call it the placator in the Helix. It's a really good one, especially I find if you put a greenback, good greenback cab sim, you know, it's to each his own. Your mileage may vary, but that's the one thing in the Helix that I always find. I want to use other IRs. I don't want to use their cab sims generally. It's just some people might love them, you know, but I find I want to use other ones. Although I like the bass ones. You know, for guitar though, I tend to I load in some Celestians and maybe some Yorks and stuff like that, and try some different stuff. And now there's 2 notes packs and stuff. So actually, you could use my, you know, maybe a great one actually be to get the 2 notes pack, and because I think they have one, right, for Helix, and I think, don't they? I'm pretty sure they did it with everybody. Maybe not. Maybe you can't load them in the. I don't know. I get confused. But look at their site, and what you want to use is a good greenback and a 412. You know, as everybody knows. Just wondering what you think of the EVH Wolfgang. Do you own one or would you get one? I have one here. Yeah, I've used. You can actually see it right there. You can see the edge of that curly maple. See, hanging right. You know, when you're backwards from the camera and you can't. How do you? Right there. That's it. It's an original from 2009. Back in the day that I got from Ed and from Matt Brook. So it's got the tiny frets and the maple neck and everything, but it's a great guitar. Ever thought about adding an Ernie Ball EVH Music Man? I would love one, to be honest. Yeah, I would really love one, Simon. They're really, you know, just it's a cool guitar, and I'd love a purple one or a weird, you know, maybe a pink one. That'd be cool. Green one, or the amber. You know, so it's a neat guitar from a cool era. Once again, I got a stupid fly or something flying around in here. I hate that. Drive you crazy, like, because they're in front of they like the light, so they're in front of the screen the whole time. Yeah, but I've always really liked those guitars. I think they feel really good. I like the neck. It's a kind of a small neck, but it's cool. Atomic Punk says the Ruby video was very informative. Thanks. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a real nice, natural chat with James Santiago. And somebody asked if I'm a fan of Mike. How do you say his name? Sorry for my ignorance. Enzinger. Is that right? He's the guitar player in Incubus, right? Do I have that right? I think. Which I really, you know, I don't like own an Incubus record or anything like that, but I hear them on the radio, and it's still a staple on, like, you know, KROQ in LA. They play quite a few Incubus songs in rotation, it seems, to this day, you know, even though they're going on probably almost 20 years old now. And his guitar playing I always thought was really cool. Like his, you know, the sort of clean chords and stuff that he does, and pretty stuff going into the heavy stuff. Really cool. I always really thought they were a good band. You know, it's them right away. They've got a real distinct sound. They seem like good musicians. The drummer, really cool. Great singer, you know, so what's not to like? Yeah. I guess I should have listened closer, you know, but Richard says Deacon left the band. That's back to the Eagles. So is that right? Yeah, I didn't know that. You know, I don't know if he was ever like, you know, what the relationship was. It seemed like, you know, you want to come out for a tour? Sure, you know, and you know, and then he probably does other things and they want to tour, and, you know, I've got this going on now, so I can't, or whatever. I think that's generally kind of how they operate, you know, from gig to gig to gig. It's probably like you make a, yeah, I'm guessing it might be like that with Glenn, where it's like, hey, we want to, you know, I'm only guessing, I don't know, but you know, it would seem to me the kind of thing where it's like, we're planning on going out for a year to a year and a half. We want to do America, Europe, or whatever, you know, they're going to do. Here's the deal. Do you want to go? You know, here's the business. Do you want to do it? And it's probably like that kind of thing, you know? So I think when we talk about the Eagles being a band, we're really talking about Don Henley, you know, and then we're talking about Joe and Timothy, and you know, as being sort of a core member kind of thing, and then virtually everyone else in the organization. You know, I'm talking about, like, I'm speculating on the business structure, but I'm pretty sure you've got your Don, you've got the other Eagles that are, and they're probably all a part of a business structure, and then everyone else is hired, you know, more or less as side musicians. You know, I'm only guessing, but I don't think at this point it wouldn't make sense to me in this point, probably to Vince or to Don, to have Vince be some sort of like, you know, like an equity sort of sharing member of the Eagles. I just don't think I don't see that happening, you know. I think, and to the fans, nobody cares, you know. It's like, but I'm just guessing it's kind of a per tour sort of arrangement, but who knows? Sad Don F left. Well, there's a lot of water under the bridge there, you know. So, yeah, I mean, he's a legend, you know. It's like, it's unfortunate, I guess, in any band when the you know, acrimony and the lawsuits, and, you know, money will cause some problems, you know. But yeah, he was you know, he did a lot of great work with them. Not an original member, but one could argue definitely the peak of, you know, them as far as a recording career goes was certainly with him. And it would have been, you know, had the stars aligned, had everything been perfect. He was around for a few years when they did Hell Freezes Over, and came back, and, you know, they made it work till, I think it was, you know, probably 93 to 98 or something, right? That he was there, 93, 94 to 90. He was there for a few years, and then it just couldn't last, I guess. But anyways, ever try out a Music Man Saber? Surprised to see Phil X using one with Bon Jovi. I've played like, I've picked them up, and at NAMM, even this past NAMM, I was interested, so I felt the neck, and, you know, Music Man makes great guitars. It's very nice, you know. And there's Sterling and John Sir are very friendly, you know, and they're pals, and they talk, and, you know, so there's a connection there. And but when it comes to a Saber, you know, you're talking about a guitar very close to my signature model, really, in many ways, certainly in the same wheelhouse. So, you know, I probably wouldn't have so much a use for a guitar like that, you know. But how would you describe the difference between single coil versus coil split on a humbucker? Well, the main difference is just that, you know, the magnets in a single coil are the pole pieces, generally speaking. And so you know, with a humbucker, you've got a bar magnet, generally speaking, under the poles. And so that's different, you know, and they never sound quite the same. I can't quite qualify in a statement like exactly what the differences are, but there's just always something that's they don't sound like a true. It's got to be the pole piece thing, I would say. They just don't really sound exactly like a true vintage sort of Fendery single coil, because you know the magnets matter, the pole pieces matter. It's just all different. They just don't, like, you know, I can get close to that sound with the tapped humbucker on my signature guitar. It's really cool, but it's going to be kind of very underwound single coil, because a Thornbucker neck is about a 7.4K pickup, something like that, I think. And so you cut that in half, you've got quite a low output single coil. It still works, but it's just not quite the same sound. They don't have quite the same soupy mids and stuff that like a Strat pickup does. But that's the, you know, probably the main difference in the construction, where the you know, the differences are. I really enjoy, to be honest, rather than tapping, especially a bridge pickup, I enjoy the parallel sound. I've talked about that before. So a humbucker with the coils and parallels tends to have a really great sound, I think. So anyway, what else we got here? Did you play Hotel California when you toured with Don Henley? Every night, every show, it was the encore. Generally speaking, the encore was, when we did play it, it was Hotel California, Desperado. You know, sometimes we do one more, but often that was the encore. Can't beat that encore. It's pretty serious business. How do you follow Hotel California? Ding, 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 ding. Desperado. That's how you follow Hotel California. Not many bands could do it, but there's one more song there that he's got to play. That's you know, every night. That's it's really fun to play Desperado, especially after Hotel California, because Hotel California is a bit more, you know, there's the intricacy of the parts and everything. You want to nail it, and just, you know, it's got to be really just so. Desperado is very easy for me to play on guitar, so there's not a lot of, you know, it's cowboy chords really. So a little bit of background vocals, but it was a nice way to wind up the set every night. Always fun. This says Deacon toured with the Eagles. I have lots of Eagles and Henley talk today. Interesting. Full-time for 3 years, left, and this year he did the European and UK tour, came out for 3 songs. Yeah, so it'd be like, you know, hey, you want to come out again? Yeah, well, I can do these dates or whatever, you know, that kind of thing, you know. It's nice. Money never caused problems for Rush. 3 ways, done. Yeah, for sure. You know, I think that especially works when you feel like you've got defined roles in the band where everybody's definitely contributing all the time. And that was always the case in Rush. With the Eagles, you know, I think it would be a little bit more of a thing where I don't think that would, you know, you don't have that. There's more guys. Somebody comes in with a song. You know, Hotel California, I believe, was a very formed, completed, finished demo, like down to note for note kind of stuff going on, musically speaking, by Don Felder. And then he comes in and Don writes the melody and all the lyrics. So now you've got those two halves of but, you know, you don't have an involvement of the other guys. Now, when that song takes off and becomes a massive hit, if you've involved everybody in the royalties, that's when, hey man, what did you do? You know, I had that song finished when, you know, so that's why the splits and things like that. And why, you know, in the Police, where, you know, in the beginning days of the Police, I think you had, you know, them all contributing. Like, there was a lot of Stuart Copeland songs and things like that, and where the equal contributions of every member. And then by synchronicity, you've got the primary guy being Sting for sure. And that is going to generate a ton of income. And especially back then, in those days, the way the business was structured, and everybody else sort of feel a little like, it's the tensions and money and human nature, especially when we got to remember a lot of these guys, when they were like when I think about the way that I am now and the way I was in my mid 30s, you know, because a lot of these guys would have been in their late 20s, early 30s. The Beatles, you know, when they broke up, they were all under 30. I always find that amazing. You know, when the Beatles were done, I think the oldest guy was 29. It's incredible. So my point being, you know, the way that the way you are at that age, and then especially if your career is just taking off for 10 years or so, and you can do no wrong, and you're, you know, at the top of your game, it's a fascinating thing, isn't it? It's like you got a lot of salt in you at that point, and you know, there's ego comes into play, and I sort of don't think people really come into their like full mature, you know, selves until maybe late 30s, early 40s, like, you know what I mean? Like where like you got a little bit of, you know, life is a funny thing. I mean, awful things happen to people earlier in life, but when stuff starts getting real, like people in your life pass away, or like, you know, you go through, you know, divorces or different things, you know, as you get older, that can taint a lot of people and probably mess a lot of people up, but also it gives you this wisdom, I think, that, you know, you start to appreciate good things more and that kind of stuff. And you know, and this is why when you see bands get back together, they tend to be, if they can put it back together and it works out, they tend to be a little more like appreciate each other and the contributions a little more. It's a little more like coming at it from a stand above it perspective, and the distance that time and a little bit of age and everything can give you, you can tend to appreciate others more, hopefully. You know, I don't know. You know, I think, you know, you know, for all the stuff that's said about Van Halen, you know, and the problems and the, you know, things that happen with that band, I think even, you know, say Ed with an appreciation for what Dave brought to, and the appreciation that the fans liked Dave and them together, and that you know, from things that, without directly quoting him, from things he said to me, you know, he's like, if we want to do this on the level we want to do it at, this is how we have to do it, you know, with us. And he was aware of that and worked hard to make it work. And a lot of people would sort of crap on Ed and be like, he's the problem and stuff. Like, and at least in my, I mean, I'm a little bit in the Camp Ed or whatever, but I'm like, you know, I saw he would definitely go to lengths to make it work. You know what I mean? Because he had the awareness and the, you know, sort of that, you know what I'm talking about. I'm getting long-winded, but the perspective. Thanks, Tom Lind. Yeah, perspective, just perspective that time gives you and stuff. It's interesting. So, but I think when you're in your 30s and you're like riding high, you know, on the, maybe literally and figuratively, you know, and the rock bands of the 70s and the 80s and stuff, it's like, you know, a lot of egos and stuff and things, you know, so whatever. It's like a different time. It's hard to keep things together, you know. Have you heard of John McGoke? Bio just came out. Super influential to Edge and Mar, for Shante, Radiohead, Steve Stevens. Not really. I don't know anything about him. Yeah, I don't. I should look into him more. I always learn things from you guys every week. I always say that, so I appreciate that. Oops, sorry there. Pearl Jam's 10 album and a lot of the V's albums was mostly Stone Gossard contributing, but gradually Eddie Vedder started writing more than half the songs. Yeah, I think that's you know, I saw a quote from Stone, something on Instagram or something, where he said, I write for Eddie now. Eddie's my muse. Like, whatever he comes up with, and they put it together, and it's a, you know, certainly, I mean, the way that Chris Cornell talked about Eddie Vedder, for instance, I think one of the very first times they, you know, hung out or did anything together was Eddie was in this up there, you know, after Andy had passed away, and they're trying to figure out what to do, and they're doing the Temple of the Dog record as a tribute. They're in the studio, and Cornell's got hunger strike, and he's only written one verse, and Eddie's there, and he said he's kind of shy or whatever, but he suggested, well, you know, why don't you try singing this verse? And he did, and he's like, that's cool. Why don't I take a verse, you take a verse, and we'll just each sing. And you know, and then they came up with the dual kind of I'm Going Hungry part on the chorus, and that's how that happened, very organically. But you know, it was almost like I find it like a really beautiful story, because it's like a passing of the torch to Eddie a little bit, bringing him in on that song, and him making that was one of his first, I guess for sure, one of his first, if not the first contribution to that lineup, you know, and Chris kind of, because of course Chris and Andy were really good friends. There's a beautiful kind of family thing about those early days in Seattle, I think, that I garner from the stories and stuff that I hear about, you know, all those guys, you know. So, you know, it's a cool thing, but, you know, Eddie's obviously a monster talent. I have lots of questions about royalties and percentage. I'm a multi-instrumentalist and starting a new band, but I write all the music. It's a good thing to get out of the way in the beginning of any new band, I think, you know, and if you feel that way, it's tough when it's a band, but you write everything, you know, it's a hard one. I mean, it's like, if that's the case, then, you know, how do you sort of profit share? I don't think that in that situation, it's just my opinion. I mean, if you're doing a ton of the work and everybody else is kind of hanging out and going to the beach and stuff, you know, and then it comes time to record and they just sort of come up with some parts. Is it really fair that it's, say, a 4-piece band and it's a 25, 25, 25, 25 split, an even split? I don't really think so. I think everybody else would have to be contributing more than that. You're starting a new band, but you write all the music. I would say to you, why do you want to write all the music? You know, not that there's anything wrong. I mean, I'm not criticizing, but I'm just saying, like, if it's going to be a band and it's not going to be your thing and they're hired guys, then why would sometimes I get confused why you would call it a band. You know, maybe you'd be better off as a solo artist. Part of being in a band is the contributions of other people. To me, when we think about Led Zeppelin ain't Led Zeppelin without John Paul Jones. You know, it's just not. And you know, the contributions of someone like Bonham, John Paul Jones, to those songs, it's not the same band anymore. Same thing with Queen. You know, it's just not the same band anymore without that kind of personality on. And if those people are contributing as much as they do to that sound, you know, maybe that's when we talk about the profit sharing thing being, you know, like, you know, equal splits on writing and publishing, or at least somewhat equal, you know, fair, you know, something. So I just think that everybody's got to have a reason to be in there. Cause I'll tell you what, I've been in a lot of bands and baby bands, and, you know, they call them baby bands, where they got a major label deal, but, you know, might have a good budget. Oh, we got a, you know, 300,000 to make the first record. This is back in the day when that happened 20 years ago. I was in a number of bands where it's like, all for one, one for all. We're in a band, but I'm the writer, you know, and that was always the unspoken thing. I'm the head dude. And then, like, you know, you get into the situation where maybe the band starts making some money or something. And then it's like, hey, wait a second. Like, well, I write the songs. Well, yeah, but we're all making $500 a week out here on tour support, even if the guy's starting to get a hit single. And it's like, you're still not, you know what I mean? For a year or two, there's not really any money. And you start, then the divisions start happening right away. You know, start seeing the, you know, but it's like, why are you, if you're starting a new band, what's the incentive? You know, there's no damn incentive. That's the problem. For, you know, young musicians be like, great, we're in a band, cool. And drummers are often the ones that get the worst end of the stick. They don't get writing, which to me can be BS, depending on the drummer. Like I say, Bonham, you know, Keith Moon, you know, his music doesn't sound the same without them. They should get something, you know, for that contribution. That's just amazing to the music, but often they don't. And then, and they're like, yeah, man, I just want to play drums. I don't care about writing songs. I'll leave that up to them. But then quickly, when the money starts, you know, then it gets weird. So it's like, if you want to keep a band together, there's got to be a reason, you know. I would say if you want to write all the music and you're the multi-instrumentalist, you know, the best way to approach it would be like the Wolfgang Van Halen situation, where it's like, in his thing, he plays all the songs. He's like, you know, I read a Rolling Stone interview this morning that just came out where he's like, I wanted to do a Dave Grohl kind of thing, like the first Foo Fighters record. I play all the stuff, I write all the stuff, but then I get a band of brothers to go out and tour it. That's basically the way Foo started, you know, and then it evolved into more from the other guys. You know, and that's the way Wolf would like to keep it. Well, I don't think, you know, the way he structures it, you know, those guys aren't on the deal, I'm sure, like record deal or whatever, you know, they're hired guys, you know, so maybe you should do the same thing. That's what I'm saying. You know, think about it from that perspective, or give those guys you know, throw them a bone as far as the, hey, I'm going to write all the music, but, you know, I'm going to, you know, I don't know, if it's 4 other guys or whatever, I'm gonna keep 50, you know, and of writers and publishing, and then I'm gonna split the other 50 between the other members, even though I'm doing the lion's share of the work. Maybe that's reasonable. I don't know, you know, for the camaraderie. If they're making great contributions, I'm not saying that should be the deal. I'm offering up you know, they got to have an incentive. You know, there's got to be some reason for them to stick around if they're not making any money for a while. So, talking about the Van Halen thing I did, I think he used a quad cortex capture of a Sir SL68. That's correct. That is what I did on that. Any thoughts on the Strymon Deco? You know, I've only used it a little bit. Brian Ray really likes it. It seems it's a kind of a unique pedal, kind of tape slap, right? And does that kind of like if you're doing a rockabilly or 50s kind of thing, it seems like really cool. But I don't know much about it beyond that. I don't have one. I didn't Queen equally split with credits. I believe they did. I think that's what I've heard as well, that it was a kind of an even split. But they were all like really, you know, important once again, you know, every member of that band to the overall sound, I think. So the Deco. So I don't have a ton of thoughts on it other than I tried it. It was cool for that vintage sort of tape slap kind of thing and that kind of ambience. I've got one of these here, which is their new little modulation box, newish, phasing chorus, that kind of thing. And they've asked me to make a video for it. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do that over the next few days and maybe out within a week or two. Should be fun. Maybe I missed a super chat. No, I don't think I did miss a super chat. Okay, well, what else do we got here? Let's see. What are you guys talking about? John has to go pee at 3 a.m. every night. Yeah, that's just part of it. My thing now is at my age, I wake up. Like I woke up at 5:30 in the morning and I couldn't get back to sleep till 7:30 or something. You know, I'll tell you a great thing. If anybody's got any problems with sleeping out there at their age, at our advanced age, as I'm sure many of us watching, I've got this app. Here it is. It's called White Noise. And this, can you hear that? It's supposed to sound like rain. I put that on. I put it on last night when I couldn't sleep. Just kind of quiet, you know, with the iPhone volume on about 40%. I just put it on the bedside table or whatever. I lie there and listen to that and start thinking about it stuff, and then you just drift off again. It really helps me get to sleep. So any kind of you know, sleep sounds kind of apps are helpful, I find. But I do that a lot now too. I wake up middle of the night and then I'm up for an hour or two and then I fall back asleep. And so I kind of have to factor that in like to my bedtime, you know, because I'm like, well, you're probably going to have an hour in the middle where you're awake. I hear it's kind of normal. Anyways, Ringo always deserves more credit. Ringo always deserves more credit. You're 100% right. Ringo was, he was the groove, man. I mean, I can't remember what song it was, but there was a version of a Beatles song that with Pete Best playing on it. That's up on YouTube, and I listened to it, and I was like, oh, you know, God bless Pete Best, but it didn't sound, you know, it didn't have the swing. You know, I can't remember what song it was, but it was you know, a classic early Beatles tune. A number of years ago, I heard it, and it was very straight and kind of stiff sounding compared to Ringo, and it didn't have the magic, that's for sure. So, yeah, there's a super chat there. I'm gonna grab. What's that? Do you have any '90s songs you think are underappreciated for the guitar parts? Ooh, Dada. Anybody listen to Dada? They had a one hit called Disneyland that came out in the maybe 96, 7, 8, something like that. I think that's my memory. I could be off on the year, but Dada, Dada, great guitar player and a guy that still played solos in the 90s and, you know, had a really cool style. Other guitar songs from the 90s that I think are underappreciated. Think about that for a minute. Nothing's coming to mind right now, but I know I'll come up with something. You know, I was really into, there was a while where I wasn't really listening to rock in the early 90s. I was into like the Joni Mitchell Turbulent Indigo album, which is like got her incredible open string acoustic thing all over it, plus Michael Landau on guitar. So that's a great guitar record if you want to check that out. Love that record. It's real dark songwriting, great songs. But that, you know, Joni is amazing. So maybe that, you know, if the Landau plays some beautiful texture, kind of swelly stuff all over that record, and her acoustic playing is worth the price of admission alone, let alone the songs, which I think are killer. So a really beautiful record. So there's some unexpected, I guess, that and Dada for the more rock thing. Yeah. Okay, there's another super chat there I gotta grab. Would running the PT15IR through the UA aux after the tone of the amps line out from the reactive load side due to the different load curve the aux is compared? Well, you can't really run the line out of the PT into the load of the aux. Now, does the aux have a line in? That's another question that I actually don't immediately know the answer to, but I will in about 5 seconds because I have one right here. Let's see. Not really. Right? So yeah, you're not really able to do that. If you want to use the aux, though, you can just take the speaker output on the PT15 and plug it into the aux, and then you're using the load in the aux. You know, it's a different load. It's, you know, it's I prefer the load that we use in our amp, but it's a good load. It's really similar to the 2 notes that they use in the aux. So I would just go that route, and I've done that. You know, if I want to, for example, get an AC30 with room kind of cab sound for a solo or something, I'll go to the aux because it's got a great the AC30 style cab that's modeled in there is really nice, and then you can pull in the stereo room mics and, you know, add a bit of the reverb if you want to, and you can get some really nice colors. So don't even think twice about just doing that. You know, just use the load in the aux, and the, you know, the difference in the load sound is going to be once you add the room mics and the stuff, and if you want to, you know, tweak the EQ, it's, who cares, you know, you can get some great results. And it's just it's another, if you have an aux and you have a PT15, don't hesitate to just use the load in the aux would be my recommendation, and enjoy. How do you like the Sir PT plugin version? Did you help design it? I did, to the extent of them sending me versions of it and me asking for revisions and tweaks, but that was only once. So I got the first version of it and I said, it's close. It sounds a little woofy and a little like something to me. And they said, yeah, we were thinking that too. Let's make some more tweaks and we'll get you another version. The next one they sent me, it was like, this is amazing. The one thing I'll say is the clean channel is maybe a little cleaner than the actual amp. But that's cool because you can, you know, it's funny, cleans in amps, like even Fender amps, it's amazing. Like, you know, if you've got a humbucker, especially in your guitar, almost any amp distorts when you hit the front end. It's just, you don't really hear it, you know, as much, you know, like a true clean, really clean is like, you know, so anyway, the plugin has a little more headroom in that sense than even the real amp, I think. And that maybe that's a good thing, you know, in some regards, you know, but it's a really, really nice plugin, and, you know, they did a great job on it. And I know a lot of people seem to really like it. I mean, I could make a whole record with that plugin, to be honest. It sounds really good. So, yeah. Dada's first album was in like 92. Played it constantly when I worked at Tower Records. It's great, especially if you were coming from the 80s at all and you liked stuff in the 80s. The Dada record really made sense because it had great guitar playing. And it was like, oh, this thing, you might not have liked Nirvana or something, but you were like, oh, this makes sense to me. That's right. I mean, you know, for those out there that know the band, really, really great band, great guitar player. I know the guy, he had an tendonitis, I think, and some issues with his hand, and, you know, which was too bad because he's such a great guitar player, but he could still play and everything. I just had heard he went to 8-gauge strings and really was being careful with his hand because, you know, issues. But Honeymoon Suite, they were another great. Yeah. I'll see your honeymoon suite, and I will up you a Haywire, another great Canadian band with a amazing guitar player that played some killer solos. If you want to 80s out for a minute, look up the song "Dance Desire" by Haywire. Check it out, Mark, and you'll listen to the solo, and you'll be like, "Oh yeah, that's my jam." It's great, and it's so 80s, the production and everything. It's even got a little dingleberry, this little rhythm part, funky little rhythm part, but it's rock. The solo rips. The guy was killer. I liked him as much as the guitar player in Honeymoon Suite for sure, and they were both great, great rock guitar players. So, oh, that's interesting. Here's a little full circle. Karen says we wrote with Dada for our record. Michael Gurley, cool. I really like them. I haven't listened to them for years, but the Verve or Oasis, yeah, the Verve record that has Bittersweet Symphony on it is an amazing guitar record in a very British sort of way. That guy just painted some beautiful colors all over that record with wah and echo, and it's just I love that record. A great record. I think it's got The Drugs Don't Work, and I can't remember that. It's a lot of really terrific stuff on there. I liked the Verve a lot when they got. Damn it, flies. It's like a gnat or something flying around in here. Get them here in the summer sometimes. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here? Let's see. If I could buy any analog delay, which one would you buy? The Sir. Kevin Sir's Discovery delay is, I think, and I said it in the video, I said, I think this is the best analog delay ever made. And I 100% back that. He put so much time and work into it, and it's got an amazing sound, and it's so versatile with a bunch of presets that you can store really long delay time. The way that he thought about the regen and the mix control and it all being musical, so that the mix is very musical, even in front of a dirty amp, that kind of thing. Easy to dial in, I find. And the regen, he building in like some limiting to it and stuff like that, so you can turn it up and it'll oscillate, but it won't destroy your amp by exploding it with, it just is this controlled oscillation that sounds so musical. So he did a beautiful job on it. I really think it's the best thought out, most user-friendly and best sounding analog delay that's been made. So it's expensive and they're a little bit tough to find, but it's worth it. It's that kind of thing that, could be, like the Memory Man, like a huge part of your sound. If you got one and then integrated it to your rig, could be the thing that a staple part of any guitar player's tone, I think. I'd love to get one on my board eventually here. It's going to happen, actually. There's another pedal coming out that's going to allow me to integrate the Sir into my board, and can't say anything more than that just yet, but it'll work really, really good, I think. I got a 90s song that has a guitar solo, isn't talked about enough. Tim Pierce played it, Iris by Goo Goo Dolls. Did Iris come out in the 90s? I think it was more in the early 2000s, but I could be wrong. That's just semantics, whatever. I know what you mean. Tim, beautiful solo, absolutely, 100%. Are you a fan of Caged? I don't even really know what it is. I mean, I understand the shapes and the idea of like that applying in any position or whatever, but I don't really understand what's the point. Can somebody explain to me like what the point, like somebody explained to me, like I'm an idiot because I'm an idiot when it comes to it. What's the point of the cage system? I get the point of just seeing the shapes in any position that you're in, and I think that's what it is, right? It's just so that you can kind of reference when you're thinking about the chords of a song, and they're, in this position, here's those old friendly shapes and whatever. And if you can play those shapes and you can think those shapes, and you can sort of know where you are on the neck in any position. Is that kind of when you're, maybe improvising or that kind of thing? Is that kind of the idea with Caged? I honestly don't, I've never thought about it, but speaking of Joni, do you do much with alternate tunings besides basic slide stuff? I have, yeah. I really, for example, I mean, I love doing a drop. Like if you do like drop the low E string to D, and then you also drop the high E string to D, that kind of tuning that a lot of people would use for slide. I like that tuning and have used it for different things on certain songs, but sometimes with the whole guitar tuned down lower. So maybe to drop C sharp, but with that same where you also drop the first string to C sharp, if that makes sense. I love the Rain Song tuning, you know, which is really unique. Obviously, you know, I used to do Seasons with Cornell and stuff. That's a really cool tuning. That's all roots fifths, basically. That's really fun to work in. I do like alternate tunings, especially for writing and being creative. You know, you put the whole guitar in some weird tuning, and now it's just, you don't think about the notes. You're just using your ear now because nothing relates anymore, really, and you just find your way. It's kind of the Yvette Young way of writing and stuff. You know, she just tuning she likes, and then she makes the music she wants to make without, you know what I mean? It's you're using your ear 100%, I think. So caged is great to see patterns, then learn 3 notes per string diatonics. Pano says, greetings from Greece here at the Guitar Summit. Yeah, I saw they'd announced me. There was a little bit of a misprint where they announced me and said that I was a tapping, what was it, polyrhythmic tapping genius or something. And I thought, uh-oh, I better start practicing my polyrhythmic tapping. I don't even know what that means. You know, it was just like a misprint where they confused my name with somebody else that's going to be there. I think what I'm going to do, because I've got to develop a clinic to do there, I do believe that's the idea. So I think what I'll do is develop a clinic around tones, unique tones, very different tones within the context of a piece of music, and then I'll break them down and I'll talk about each tone and how it influences the type of part I would play with that sound. So I haven't done it yet, but I was thinking like, you know, a crazy micro synth, like heavy, you know, octave shifted thing, a compressed, super hyper clean thing, solo tone, you know, going into, you know, a lead mid-rangey, you know, with beautiful delay and stuff like that, an epic solo kind of sound, that kind of thing, where it's like really diverging, you know, from sound to sound to sound, and how each thing would influence the type of part that I would play. Because that's kind of what I do in my YouTube videos, I guess, is the sound influences the, you know, and just kind of how, you know, I don't know, maybe I write something on the spot too with each sound, like play something that I've already figured out with each sound, but then also just to like dial up each sound and say, here's the type of thing that I would do with it, and just kind of come up with a riff on that kind of thing, and talk about the different sounds and dialing them in and stuff. And, you know, like, because a lot of guitar players, I think, we can tend to stagnate into one type of sound, you know, and now with the modelers and everything, I mean, pretty much with a modeler, you know, multi-effects, we talked about multi-effects earlier, you can do so much with just like, you know, the one box that's kind of got a world of plethora of effects in it. So, but I think a lot of people still, maybe that's overwhelming and they don't know what to do with it, you know, even when you're like stepping through the presets on the unit, it's like, what would I ever use that for? I'm a blues player or whatever, you know? So, you know, how to kind of go, well, here's what you would do with it. And maybe even within a blues sort of idiom, the way you could, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know. And develop a clinic kind of around that. Yeah. I'm always trying to get more pop or harmonic content when running distorted leads. Compression pedal helps. Any advice of increasing this? If you haven't tried, you know what I would say the number one thing, Robert, is like a mid boost like this Sir Coco instead of an overdrive will blow your mind when it comes to how much like pushing the mids is the way, you know. It's sort of a more polite range master. Like a range master has a real, you know, you've almost got grit in there, just the nature of a range master style boost. But you know, compared to pushing with a clean boost, which just gives you a bunch of gain and kind of a flat boost into the front end, if you target the mids and boost like around, you know, 700, 800, 1K, you know, up to 2K, and you target somewhere in there and you boost that frequency, it's just like the harmonics start, because that's where the guitar really lives, like the main kind of, you know. So I don't want to sound like I'm just pushing Sir pedals the entire time, even though I love them. You know, the Coco is amazing. Here's another one that I really liked recently. This is the Barbecue. I've got to make a video for this pedal. So this is a boost that allows you to let me see. On this version of you've got a treble, a middle, and a bass, and a volume. So you could push the mids on this and dial the bass back and leave the treble at noon or something and push it up. And I'll show that in a video soon. There's another version of it here that's more deluxe. This is a 2-channel, and you can see it's got a 3-band EQ on each side. And so you could set a straight up, pretty much kind of clean thing, and then do a much more mid-range focus boost with this pedal. And so that'd be another one you could do it with. Those, or a treble booster of some sort. I got another one here I got to make a video for that I think I will do today. Actually, this is the superconductor from Crazy Tube Circuits. This has a Rangemaster style boost in it, as well as an EP style boost. Different, it's a multi-boost kind of affair. And so pedals like this will tend to increase, more than an overdrive. Cool, like some of them, yeah, sure, they'll do. But I find if I want the harmonic thing and I want it to feed back and just have the harmonics, my number one for a number of years into, say, a Dirty Marshall sound that's already kind of formed, but I just want more of that stuff, is the Coco Boost. A Rangemaster kind of gets you to the similar place, right? The Brian May exploding harmonic thing. But a Rangemaster is a bit more of a one-trick pony. Like, you can't really use it in front of a dirty trebly Marshall already. It's just too much treble, so that's where the Coco is. Like, when I say it's a more polite sort of Rangemaster thing, it's more targeted in the mids. It doesn't, the Brian May thing is taking a really farty kind of sort of dirty sound, and then you boost it with a Rangemaster, and it gets you to that place where it sounds perfectly balanced with an amazing overdrive. But that Rangemaster into an already sort of perfectly balanced dirty sound that sounds great is going to be too much treble and too much bass cut, I think, in my opinion. So, yeah. Simto says he misses Tower Records in Shibuya. I miss everything in Shibuya, but yeah, certainly Tower is the legendary, 7 or 8 floor Tower Records in Shibuya is a unbelievable record store. So cool. I'm going to be setting up a home studio. I wanted to create a room for my guitar cabs. It's 8 feet by 9 feet. Any tips for treatment? Should I use an attenuator? I do. There's no reason these days, I don't think, to pummel yourself and your cabinets with 100 watts of power, in the age of, if you get a power station or something, you can bring the volume down to at least a half and still be pushing a cab plenty hard and get some great tones. So I like the idea of using it. I always have my power station in a line on the way to the cab to the other room. As far as deadening up the room, you can get some acoustic treatment from all kinds of places these days. Back in the day, ATS Acoustics, you could look up. They make 2x2 and 2x4 kind of panels that you can mount, that are similar. See what I've got in the back there? Those are big custom ones that I had made. That one's like really beefy. It's about that thick, that's just packed full of kind of insulation kind of stuff. And it just soaks up. So anything coming off my speakers and stuff hits that. And then the stuff that's in the corners, those are bass traps. And so those are go in the corners and then they're open on the back. So, it's a way to treat a room that's essentially a rectangle in here. And kind of, dial it in a bit more. You guys can't see, but I've got these wooden things on either wall beside me. You can see them in my videos that also deflect and absorb. And so all that kind of stuff. Now, you don't really need to get, you're not mixing in the room where your cabs are going to be. So I would say what I would recommend doing is having a hard floor. Because then you can augment that with a rug if you want to, or maybe not, leave the floor hard, but then have the walls definitely dampened down with stuff. Have them kind of soft stuff. And like I say, you can get these kinds of panels, generic ones from a place like ATS Acoustics, bass traps, things to deaden up the walls and that kind of thing so that you don't have too much bounce around. But it's nice to have a little life in the sound. I don't have it in my cab room as carpet on the floor. So it's real dead. But I tend to think a hard floor with dead walls is a pretty good compromise, just in my opinion. So you can use a Pergo or that kind of, fake hardwood kind of situation floor for the cabs to sit on. But you might want it to be totally dead and have, light carpet in there or something too, just to be, then it's just super dead sounding generally. There's no reflection getting back into the mic. But So hopefully that's helpful. Look at atsacoustics.com. I think they're still a thing. I can check really quick here and see. I found them to be reasonably priced for acoustic panels. By ATS Acoustics, atsacoustics.com. Yep. Yeah, go there and you can see custom acoustic panels. They even make them with art on them and stuff. Yeah, you can get things printed on them. I'm looking right now at their website. Acoustic baffles, you know, ceiling for the ceiling. Actually, wow, they've got some really interesting ones now that I haven't seen before. But you could order up some stuff from there to deaden up the room and kind of treat it and that kind of thing. So the other thing I would recommend doing is doing the door properly. And if you look at, I've got a double door here, and one thing that I did was I treated it so you can see the second door. I think, can you see? I don't know if it's bright enough to see right now. I'll just turn on this light for a minute so you can see. All the way around is this sort of neoprene foam stuff going all the way around the door, and it seals tight the way it was done. It was done properly so that when the door closes, it seals real good against this neoprene stuff. And the second door is like that as well. So I got this from a guy. It's like a thick square kind of neoprene, and I got it from a guy here that does studio stuff specifically. I can't remember the name of it. It was in Studio City, and I think he was kind of closing, but you know, it's not stuff from Home Depot. It's this real good thick rectangular kind of neoprene seal that is specifically kind of studio stuff. And it goes all the way down to the bottom too. You just got to seal tight. The whole thing is the door needs to be like tight so that when it closes, it's right up against that neoprene all the way around. And then same thing on the other side. If you can do a double door, that'll really close it up, you know. And then if you've got no AC or any lighting or anything, like if you look at the electrical in my room too, everything's run. Can you see that? How it's done all on the, it's just all on the, you can see over there, like on the what am I saying? It's not running through the walls. There's no holes in the wall, right? You know, it's all tight like that, the way that it runs in. So I think you can kind of see it. That's on the floor down there. But anyway, if you do everything kind of on the inside, like the whole ceiling is the same way. You can't see it good enough, but it's all the, you know, the conduit or whatever for all the electricity is all like on the, you know, I mean, you're not breaching the integrity or whatever of the, you know, the room that you've built to try and be silent. So that's helpful too for having isolation. The wall, I didn't do a double wall on this wall, but it's a 2x6 wall, I do believe. And it's got 3 sheets of drywall with green glue in the middle on one side and 2 sheets on the other side. And then in the middle it's not rock wool, but it's that similar kind of stuff in the middle, insulation. So when I close up that door and the second door and the outside, I mean, I can crank music in here or play loud guitar. When you're outside, you can barely hear it. And that's kind of what you want for a cab room for sure. I did it on the cheap, the way that I did it in here, but it works. So, okay. There's another super chat I missed. Do you have a preference between high gain modded plexi type versus the SL67 with booster drive? I like both. I mean, I kind of like it all. I guess you can see that with the amps that I have here. There's something about a plexi, and I showed it in the video where if you turn the whole amp up, I actually did do a video on this, like where if you turn the whole amp up, and you know, you get the Van Halen thing, the power supply starts collapsing. And I showed it in the sound of, I actually mic'd the transformers of, you know, you can hear the roar of the transformer with, you know, when the cab's in the other room or isolated or loaded or whatever. But, you know, so you're not hearing guitar through speakers. You just can hear that transformer buzzing away on the amp in the room. That compared to a modern high gain amp where you got the master down, everything's in the front end. The difference is that the power supply and the voltage, I mean, the amp exceeds its capacity to deliver, like, you know, ability to deliver clean power. You get this voltage sag when you play. It's part of the Van Halen thing. When you sag the amp to 90 volts too, even more with a Variac, you get even more of that because now you're starving the power supply a little bit. voltage, so it happens sooner, and you can just hear and feel the whole thing collapse and compress a little bit. That's a very special sound to me that you can only get that way. And then when you roll the volume on the guitar and the thing cleans up all magic like Eddie would do, it's the same. It's a very similar, Brian May, or, it's a similar thing where you get all this dynamic from driving the amp so hard up to that point, past where the power can be clean. And, it's a really cool, very dynamic thing. You're running the amp hard as hell, but there's no free lunch sort of thing. When we got into the modded high gain amps and kind of trying to simulate that, you can get a similar thing, Jose and onward, I guess, that kind of, modded, adding 12x7 gain to the front end. Sure, you can get a similar gain and distortion amount, but it's not the same as saturating the hell out of and pushing the power supply beyond where it can deliver the clean power. And so it's a slightly different sound. It's a more controlled sound, and that's what you hear as you get into the more gainy sounds of the 80s and then into the 90s, and gain amps with Soldanos and stuff. It's a really cool sound too. It's a little bit more of a controlled linear sort of distortion that doesn't have quite that unpredictable, you're going at it a little bit of a different way. Preamp gain versus sagging the hell out of a vintage power section, And one would argue, could argue, should argue, I will argue that the vintage way is a really signature kind of where some of our greatest guitar sounds, that was, the most unique tones and guitar parts were maybe created, using that, I think. So to a degree, yeah. And you ask about boost and drive pedals, similar thing. You're adding gain to the front end and, kind of going at it by, at that, in that way. And it's a little different. Sorry. Yeah. What's the difference running a mini head like a Friedman BE30 at, is there even a BE30? I didn't even know that. I don't know what that is, but 8 ohms into a 112 or at 16 ohms through a 212. The wattage is cut in half. Not really with a tube amp. You don't have the wattage cut in half. Unless you're running a half power switch. And that's how you're talking about the ohmage. Just don't factor that in. With the tube amp, it's not, whether you're running 8 or 16, if you want to set the amp to be the matching impedance for the cabinet, and you're not, by switching to 16, you're not cutting the wattage, unless you're talking about using a half power switch and then needing to change the impedance switch. That's a different thing, to match, you know what I mean, what you will notice is a 212 will generally always sound louder than a 112 because you're just kind of moving more air, generally speaking. So, quieter with a 212 versus a louder 112. I generally think with more speakers equates more volume most of the time. Of course, your mileage may vary. If you're running a 15 watt amp into a 212, or if you're running a 50 watt amp into a 112, it just depends. And that now we get into like, the beam. Is it a little boxy 112 and it sounds like, not as loud as a, oversized 212 that makes more bass in the cabinet and just sounds, so there's a lot of factors there. But generally speaking, with wattage, the kind of the conventional thinking is that 50 to 100 is only 3 dB different. That's what they say. You double the power and you get a 3 dB increase, something like that. 3 dB is significant. I certainly notice it in here, with a 100 watt versus a 50 watt Marshall style amp. Let's say when you max them, for sure the hundreds have more. And I don't even know if it's 3 dB. It might even be more, where you feel it. But in the context of a band, a 50 watt tube amp is really loud if you're maxing out. I mean, my Marshall is my 50 watt up there is, if I want to use it the way I want to use it and crank it up to 6, it's friggin' loud, like with the band. Loud enough to, people generally complain that it's too loud. So anyways, wow, we got some crap in the chat here. We got some, what do you call it? Put user in timeout. Did somebody already do that? Sorry, I had to clean up a little bit of mess there. A little bit of garbage. Do you use a power conditioner? Right now I have a radial in my rack that I got that I really like. It's got a USB output on the front, and it's great. It's kind of used for all my studio gear. I have another one back there that's made by, that most of my amps are plugged into. What the heck is it called? Trip Light. It's just a, kind of power conditioner that most of the heads in the rack there are plugged into. Yeah. That's interesting. Sweetwater has a group of folks to help design acoustic treatment for a room. That's cool. I didn't know that. That's a useful thing. Have a 40-watt Blackstar HT40. If I put new tubes in, will I need to bias it? Look and see if it's cathode bias or not. If it's cathode bias, you can just pop them in. If it's not, then you need to have it biased. So just look in the manual, look up online, anything you can find about it. If you're not sure, check with, their, they must have a warranty or customer care or some sort of, department. Hit them up and ask them. Cathode bias amps are just, pop them in. It just depends on the design of the amp. Brian Smith, thank you for the super chat. Thanks for all you do for us guitar nerds. Thank you, sir. I'm finding my dry bell 67 plus HX stomp into cab M can pretty much do anything. That's a great setup for sure. Your Philx cab packs, and Philx cab packs are all I use. 3 pedals or whole universe. 2 notes completes the helix for sure. That's awesome. That's interesting. So you use the HX stomp into the cab M for cab sim. There you go. See, I love the helix stuff. I mean, you can get great sounds out of a helix, and then just using the outboard kind of cab sim. Yeah, good stuff. And a dry bell 66. It's nice to, I did that rig like that years ago as well with the helix and have a few things pushing the front end. I had an Archer and I really liked a certain Keeley compressor, kind of their copy of a DBX 160. I had that on there, and then a Starlight Fuzz from Crazy Tube Circuits. I just liked having a few of those pedals with the helix, and I used to use the Celestion IRs with it. I was really happy with that. Do you ever use an ABY? I'm trying to decide between the Radial Twin City or Radial Big Shot. Not sure of the exact difference between the two, to be honest, but I like the radial pedals a lot. Just look for the one that has the features that you want. That's all I would say. I think the Twin City is is the Big Shot got some remote switching or something that maybe that the Twin City doesn't. That could be the only difference. But you want something, generally speaking, that has transformer isolation on one output, so you can avoid any ground loops that you're invariably going to get, and also phase flip for the second, in case you got 2 amps that are out of phase with one another, and then you can just put those 2 switches, the radial ABY, you're golden. And a good buffer, generally speaking, is important. You want that. So how do you deal with arm pain and carpal tunnel? Well, first thing I would suggest is visiting your doc and getting in to see a sports medicine place. Computer work makes it worse. 23, sometimes I wake up with shooting arm pain. Yeah, it's not good. But the number one thing, and I would really recommend it, is finding a good sports medicine person. They are the people that will help you with stretches. If you need to maybe sleep at night with an arm thing, I've done that, where it holds your wrist straight. Because sometimes I used to sleep like this, and then you wake up and your hand is totally numb. That doesn't help. Luckily, I've avoided most problems for the last few years. I haven't had anything really going on. Knock on my desk. Knock on wood. It can be debilitating. But the number one thing I would say is, get in to see your doc or get a referral to a sports medicine place and find somebody that understands, because these kinds of things are so common to them. The repetitive injury, stress injury kind of things, and they'll have ways to help with stretches, putting your hand against a wall and doing certain things to kind of open up those. I always find too that guitar, Like you say, computer is maybe the main thing. Guitar for me wasn't the problem. It's like other things, like the sleep thing. I would screw up my hands doing that. And then when I would play, at the beginning, maybe be like, oh man, I'm having this nerve thing or something going on. After 20 minutes, half an hour, I'm good. It's like the blood getting into my arm. My guitar playing actually almost seemed to be therapeutic for the other arm problems I was having. It was never my, maybe at one point when I first went to GIT and I was overdoing it a little bit, maybe I had a little tendonitis kind of stuff going on. I found that just some ibuprofen actually really helped with that. That doesn't work for everybody, but it can be hard on the stomach. But, depending on your age and, well, you're 23, you're pretty young. Just be careful with that stuff because it can really eat a hole in your stomach, and the non-steroid anti-inflammatories can be rough on your gut and your liver and stuff. So just be careful. But maybe you want to try naproxen. That's like a leave. These things can be helpful. So, but yeah, doctor. See the doctor. Is there another super chat I missed there, or did I get? That was the HX Stomp one. Yeah, no. So I got it all. Okay, cool. What else have we got? What are you guys talking about? Yes, you need to bias in HT40, so it's not cathode bias then. Okay, yeah. Just find a good tech, and maybe they've made it relatively user friendly to do yourself, or maybe not. Is there bias points on the back? Some amps have them, other ones don't. Probably not. Pete, it depends. Thorn. It does depend. Do I need to bias my HT40? Well, it depends. Is it cathode bias or is it not? That kind of thing. A lot of these questions, it's definitely it depends kind of thing. Shouldn't you always bias amps with the L34s? It depends. No, not necessarily. Like a Badger, Sir Badger 30 is cathode bias. You can pop those EL34s right in there and rock and roll without bias. So it depends on the design of the amplifier. Most amps, I would say the majority of amps out there that are EL34s are probably not cathode. But I mean, like your average 50 watt 2 EL34. One kind of dead giveaway can be if they say it's 30 watts or 20. Like I think, for example, I think the newer Marshalls, don't quote me on this, but I think the SV20, which is a dual EL34 but 20 watts, those lower wattage, you can kind of, it's probably cathode bias just because of the design. Badger 30 has 2 EL34s, 30 watts. Probably cathode bias. Indeed it is. But if it's 50 watts that they're getting out of a pair of EL34s, you can bet your bottom dollar that it's not cathode bias and that it's going to be more, the typical Marshall style power section or something. You're going to need to bias it. Yeah. So it really just depends. I run my 50 watt Plexi up, very high volume, 7 on the dial. Good for you. I love it. Previously 8 or 9, and ran through a set of tubes in about a month. Well, it's the price we pay for rock and roll. I've since biased it lower at 32. It was at 40 and didn't run past 7. Yeah, that's a good 32 to, but there's the other that I don't understand because I'm not a tech, but I hear a lot of guys saying 30 watts at max dissipation, blah, or whatever, 32 volts at, whatever the amp tech lingo is. But 32 is a number I hear a lot as being a good, whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't. One of these days I'm going to get one of these geniuses that I know to help me understand how to bias my own amps, and but I still don't know. What else we got here? Let's see. At one point I was playing super extra light and couldn't lift a coffee cup. Wow, yeah, that's some severe arm stuff. Carpal tunnel. Ooh, this is interesting. Rand got carpal tunnel surgery. It helped like magic. 15 minutes. That saved my hand. Very interesting. Can you tell us, if you're still here, good sir, did you get the newer kind of like very minimal invasive sort of, because I know there's like a very small incision. They go in and they do a quick surgery, and it seems to be quicker recovery and less invasive than some of this old carpal tunnel style surgeries. But tell us a little bit more about your experience, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that would be interested. I'm always interested in this stuff to hear about it. Yeah. You guys are being unsavory in the chat, John, but it's good on you. I like it. Talking about a numb hand is only good for one thing. Oh my goodness. All right. I got a super chat I got to grab there, but let's Horst, how are you? What do you think? How long does it take to break in a new Marshall 412 with greenbacks? I don't know. I don't really think about it. You just plug them in and rock it, and one day you notice, like, a few months down the road, like, oh, it sounds nice and warm right now. It sounds really good. They always sound good out of the box to me, but maybe they're a little fizzier, but it's not. I've fully plugged in and started using, maybe on recordings and things like brand new cabinets. I don't worry about it that much. It's not like, oh, I must break it into this point before I will play a gig or record. I don't think about it that much. Yeah. This fella has a Jubilee 2555X reissue 2-channel 100-watt, hoping you can review. Generally speaking, I don't do like reviews on new big amps, as you may have noticed on my channel, occasionally, but I do more of the kind of amps in the zone thing, which I know it's like, what's the difference? But I would be happy to actually do an amps in the zone on a Marshall Jubilee, like an original one, and then maybe compare it to a newer one. Less of a review of a new one and more of a, let's talk about an amp that's relatively legendary and there's a new version of it, kind of thing. It'd actually be interesting to try one of the, how do you say it? The Alex Lifeson signature, which is basically a Jubilee that he does with Mojo. I'd love to try one of those at some point too, because it's basically a copy of that amp, new version. Has anyone yet tried a Thornbuckers and a PRS S2 594? Too modern for low to medium gain and tension of the guitar neck scaling? Geez, I don't know. Good question. Specifics, not sure. Yeah. This is a great question. If I was to put an order in for a PT15, is it possible to request a custom Tolex? I would love to be able to do that. We're not really set up to do that, I don't think, but it's something I would love to do, or at least do like runs of 10 or 20 in a certain type of Tolex. I think it would be really fun. It's a great question for customer service. Like if I ordered one of these from my dealer and I put in an order, could you guys could you put in an order to your cat? Because the cabinets are made by a cabinet local guy, that does them, and that's where they get them from. And we always specify the certain Tolex, the one that we've decided, but he's got other stuff. So I'm not really sure. I don't want to open a can of worms, or but it might be something that for an upcharge they could do. I'd love to get into. We've spoken about it before. I'm like, wouldn't it be fun to do? And they've done it. You've seen like runs of white Sir Badgers, different colors, different things that they've done in the past. So they used to do. I've seen purple OD 100s and different things over the years. Guitars for your project. Hey, thanks for the super chat. 442 people online. Great to have all you folks here. Thank you for being here every week. Or if you're here just this week, that's cool too. I love you all. I have a PT15, says Guitars for your project, and matching 112. Wanting a little more juice on stage. Would adding another 112 be as effective as your 212? It'll certainly give you more like sort of dissipation. I always think it seems like more volume. I don't know if it technically is. Like I was saying, more speakers moving more air. You can kind of separate them a little bit and get a bit of spread. 112s are fun for that. It seems like it's louder to me, although I don't know if it technically is. But just the fact that you can cover more ground, because a 112 is pretty boxy and beamy. There's no way around that. It's just the design. And then another thing you can do, man, is you could always slave, like if, depending on how you use the line out, you can use that as a slave out and go into another cabinet and add more power. Like you could use something like the Seymour Duncan power stage or something, one of those little guys, and slave out of the line out, just turn off the cab sim, go into that power amp and then go into another cabinet. Now you've got like a volume control that you can just bring up that other one as loud as you want, kind of a, fun way to do it, because you're getting the full tone basically baked into that line out. And, if what you're looking for is a little more, but controllable, that could really be the way to, consider doing it like something. Maybe you've even got a power amp lying around, a Moss valve, or an old Rocktron Velocity, or and you just come right out of that line out, right into that other cab. Opens up doors for slaving with effects and doing different things too. I mean, you could go into a reverb or delay as well, and then add that in. And now we'll get kind of almost it's not stereo, but you get a little more dimension, and it just opens up the doors, So think about some of those options, and all the way from adding another cabinet to adding another cabinet and running it more in a slave setup. It's interesting ideas. Is Sir and you working on a PT30? Not a 30. It'll be more. It'll be more like 40 or 50, I think. But yeah, we're working on stuff. Cool stuff. Basically, it's a ways off, but we're in the layout stage of and I've got all the ideas and everything, and I basically have. I mean, not to go too into detail, but I've basically got modded PT100 that achieves the differences that I want. And it's ferocious, so really cool. So we're working on it. I'd like to be able to do. I'll just say I'd like to be able, like, the differences. I'd like to be able to do even more, like, metal with it, and also more plexi. So, and the middle ground. So that's kind of what, and I feel like we've got that all figured out kind of already. So tell us about your streaming rig, like what I'm doing right now. It's really simple. I've been using forever. I might switch to a Shure because they've said they want to send me something to try. They now make an SM7 style mic that's USB, and that would work perfect for what I'm doing here. But honestly, I've used this for years and it works very well. It's a Samson USB mic that also it has a 1/4 inch input on the back, so you could plug in an acoustic guitar, the output of a Helix or something into that. And there's a separate volume control on the front of this Samson that allows you to blend that in. So it's the same thing Rick Beato's used, I think, for a number of years for live streams. I recommended it to him years ago, and he says he uses it. So it's a nice sounding mic. It's called a G-Track Pro. And then for streaming software, I use StreamYard, which is web-based, and it's flawless, and I love it. It works really, really, really well. So that's what you've seen me use for the last couple of years, at least, maybe 3, going on 3 years. I like it. Okay, what else we got here? Let's see. This is good advice for a 50-watt amp. Previous username says, buy matched quads, even if you only need 2 tubes. Bias for the first set, and then no need to bias for the second set. That's correct. Then you've got a backup set. You're already biased if you feel like you just want to switch them out after a couple of years, and you're good to go. You save money at the tech. So you spend a little more upfront for a quad of tubes, but it helps you in the end in many ways. I would always recommend. It's great advice from previous username there. Recommend doing that. Do you set up your own guitars? Quite a bit, yeah. I do. Everything short of fret dressing, I can do. So do your new IEMs sound like you are on stage, like when you turn your head or move closer to drummer? Yeah. That's the idea with the mics, is you put them in and then you turn up the mics and it kind of sounds like you don't have in-ears in anymore. It's not exactly the same, but it's like pretty close to, you can hear people talk, and yeah, you walk over and the drums get louder, and there's a switchable limiter, so you can turn it on or not. And you can just have those mics at any level that you want. So the stage sound and the ambience, you can kind of have it at any level. And that opens up the doors as far as, it changes the way that you might get a mix in your in-ears. You might not need as many things anymore that you would with obviously totally sealed off, no ambient sound. Now you're getting everything from the monitor desk. Now you got the mics, you can hear the stage. And it's like, oh, just give me a little of my guitar. I'll augment the sound that I can hear coming out of the amp and the cabinet with a little bit in here. Give me, a little bit of bass, because I can hear the bass amp quite well now. I can hear the drums. So just give me a little kick, little hat. Oh, sounds cool. Okay, vocals, bring in the vocals now. Good. It's a little like that. I find at Soundcheck, where you don't have to, you're not in this closed off environment. As Ian Thornley said, just me alone with my thoughts. I like that. Were you happy with the quad quad Cortex based pedal board you brought out with the Classic Rock Show. I didn't use with Classic Rock Show, the quad Cortex board. I used my regular pedal board and a PT15. And then I added a quad Cortex right at the end of the signal chain on the output of the amp, the direct out. And I did, on the last tour, I did speaker simulation to the PA and the monitors in the quad Cortex. And I also added some stereo effects because it was mono, line out of the PT amp. So I had my whole pedal board rig, everything, amp loaded down, then essentially, line out into the quad, adding a little bit of stereo stuff and speaker sim, and then going to the PA. So that's how I did it. And yeah, it was great. Now the gig I just did with Five for Fighting on the weekend, that was all quad and just, fly date. Can literally load it in a backpack, or with the pedal board, I got to put it in a Pelican case, but because I got a couple pedals on a board, but it's different setup. I never do the same thing twice, it seems. Crazy. Deshaun. Hello, Pete. Got my first Marshall SV20. Any tips or suggestions? Turn it on 10. Can I run it into my Rectiverb 25 combo? Still going to get the PT15. Can I run it into my Rectiverb 25 combo? You mean the speaker? I mean, you could just take the output and run it into the speaker on that amp and use the internal combo speaker. You could load the amp down with a load box and then take the line output of the load box and run it into the effect return of the Rectiverb and use it as a sort of slave thing with some effects in the middle. A bunch of different ways you can do it, but tell me about what you want to achieve and I can give you a better answer. All the way to the bottom here. How do I crank the distortion up in my custom quad 200 HD watt amp head? The gain is weak. I bought amp from a dude in Facebook Marketplace for $50. I don't know anything about that amp. It sounds like it's probably a solid state affair, and you might just want to get a good Marshall overdrive pedal, add it to the front end, something like that. If you don't like the sound of the overdrive in the amp, seems like the kind of amp you're going to want to add a gain pedal to. Looking at the floor right now, just looking for something I can recommend. I mean, something like Sir Riot, Friedman Small Box, something along those lines to get a ampy overdrive tone. Have you ever played a Music Man Luke? Just a little bit. Cool, Like I say, similar to, kind of the vibe of my guitar, I guess. I mean, a hum single kind of affair. Don't really remember what the neck was like, to be honest. But let's see what else we got here. Richard says having 50 guitars doing his own setup is something you had to learn. Yeah, you got too many to eventually, you got to kind of do it yourself. Rock Producer says, what's your guitar action? Quite low. I'm a wuss. I like it low. I use 9.5 gauge strings, and I like one thing that's really important that I can't do myself is the nut on a guitar. And I will say, if your guitar seems like the action's high, especially down in the lower frets, it's probably the nut. Getting the nut cut just right is really important to me to a good feel. Yeah. So that's really important. That's something you got to go to a good tech that knows how to cut a nut, Yeah, but the Sirs, they're great. And John usually looks mine over before they leave and does an amazing job. And, they do impeccable fret work and stuff. So I've grown accustomed to, spoiled, let's say, by those setups. You're talking about my chair. That's correct. I can't pronounce that. I'm not even going to attempt to, but it's from IKEA. And yeah, they used to be $250. So there you go. A little inflation. Ooh, it's fun. Inflation. Still a great chair at $329. I will say, before I got this chair, I was looking at many other chairs from like Relax the Back and stuff that were up around $1,000. And it was like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to pay this because this is what these kinds of, sort of great on your back, chairs seem to go for $800, $900 on sale. They were really expensive. And then I got this and it's like, wait a minute, this chair's amazing. It's basically probably a copy of, it's got good lumbar support and you can actually tilt it and take a nap. Oh, sorry. Whoa. Now here's the only problem. How do I get it back? I don't remember how to do that. Yeah, I can't remember. So now it's going to be tilted back for the rest of this affair. But there is a simple way. How do you do it? No, that's the up and down. Got it. I usually go through that every time that I put it back. You kind of, I think you just have to pull the handle and lean it back, and then it releases and goes forward again. But you can totally take a nap, and it's fantastic. Great chair. Are you talking to Sir about power scaling or an onboard attenuator? For my amp, yeah, it won't really need it. It's much like the PT15. If you've ever tried one of my amps, 100 or a 15, you'll know they have a great master volume and they sound really cool at lower volumes. You know, that said, I mean, yeah, if you want to do a bit more of a plexi thing, yeah, you're not going to be able to you're going to have to crank it up. But you don't really, on my style of amp, the 3-channel, a little bit more modern, it'd be like having an attenuator or power scaling on a you know, what's another modern sort of, you know, a 5150 or something. It's not really a thing because they've got preamp gain built in the front end and just seems like excessive. They add costs that you guys don't want to pay. That's for sure. Cost and weight and all that stuff. Did you see that Norm is back? I did, yeah. Must all wish Norm well. He seems like he's back in the shop and doing good. We're talking about Norm's Rare Guitars. He was in the hospital for a little bit, so we wish him well. He's a legend in this industry. Got a couple of super chats there I got to jump to. Hey, Artie QTV, thanks so much. I appreciate the, that'll keep me in coffee for the next couple of weeks. Keep me fired up. And I was just feeling the caffeine right now. I'm good and caffeinated, that's for sure. Maybe don't need more, but we're going to do it anyway. Here we go. It's almost time for lunch. It's 1:31, so I'm going to hang for another 15 or so, and then I'll jet. Have you been to the venue where Cheap Trick's Budokan album was recorded? Yes, that is the legendary Budokan. I've recorded 2 concerts there. I've played Budokan 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, I think. Probably 5, maybe more. I think 5 for sure. And it's it's not actually like, it's legendary. I would say it's not that nice of a venue. It holds about 7,000 to 8,000, and it's kind of in an octagon sort of shape. It doesn't really sound great. The air conditioning's really bad, and I think it's due for a reno. I think they're going to kind of update it, but it does have a hell of a lot of great history. You know, it was for Budo, you know, for the, you know, Japanese martial art competitions and things. That's why they made it originally back in the day, I do believe. And it's a fascinating place, and kind of close to the Imperial Palace in Tokyo. And you always go there and just like, yeah, this is cool. And you have to play Surrender at soundcheck. You just do, or Dream Police or something, you know. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. I love Japan so much. Oh, don't get me started. I miss it. Just want to use the speaker in the combo till I get a Marshall cab. Yeah, Deshaun. So you can use the speaker in it was a Mesa 25, right? That amp. So just, you might need a little extender cable to go from the, you know, because generally they're cut kind of tight, the speaker cable. You know, the speaker is going to be wired to to the, you know, and you plug it in and it's then internal. So you might just need a 1/4 inch to quarter coupler, so that you can then plug a speaker cable in and then go to your Marshall head. So get a short speaker cable and a 1/4 inch to 1/4 inch coupler from an electronic supply place, and hook up your Mesa and rock out with that Marshall. Yeah. Super chats aplenty. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Pete. Says Richard, great way to spend my Sunday afternoon. Got ideas that inspires me to try something new. Awesome. That's the best thing that I could possibly hear. Appreciate that. Lauren says that he came across a video with myself and Melissa Etheridge where you'd play "Wow What," and she'd sing "Yeah Yeah" and back and forth. Yeah, we used to do stuff like that. It was fun. It was fun. You know, lots of you know, and she'd play my guitar and come around behind me, grab the guitar and play, you know, or we'd do like, you know, one person's hand, you know, all kinds of, you know, live stuff. It was fun. Love Melissa. Richard says use a speaker cable, not a guitar cable. That's correct for hooking up the Mesa amp to the, yeah, make sure it's a bona fide speaker cable. Don't use a guitar cable for doing the 1/4-inch coupler thing. Are you going to Satch's G4 event in January? No, I don't think so. I haven't been asked, but also beyond that, I couldn't because I've got tour. So I'll be over in the UK, I think, during that time. Why do people like P90s so much? I think just because they have this amazing kind of fat, nasty, cool sound that is somewhere between a telly and a humbucker, you know? They're generally pretty hot and cool, hot and cool. They're hot, they're cool. Yeah, they just have a nasty kind of, until you know, when you try one, you'll be like, oh, that's cool. Like it's just a fat single coil, raunchy thing, you know. Think Leslie West, like with the Les Paul Jr. Pete Townsend, the greatest sounds he ever got to me were the SG special into a high watt, you know, live at leads, those tones. That's P90, just brilliant sounding. Paul Baker, if you had only one guitar, one amp, and 3 pedals for a hard rock gig, what would you choose? It'd be my new signature guitar. I would have to say probably a PT100 because then I know I've got the power to cover any gig. And 3 pedals. I'm going to go with a tuner. I'm going to go with, I'm going to pick carefully here, an overdrive of some sort. Let's say an Archer. And then I'm going to go with, or you know what? Maybe I could go with my Unit 67 would be good because it's got a degree of boost in the front end and a Rangemaster style in there. I could hit the front end amp and do a leady thing with it. And then if I was playing clean, I could also, because it's got a compressor, I could use that. Might just have to switch in between songs, the settings. So let's go with the Unit 67, PT100, my guitar, a tuner, and for the last and final pedal, in your scenario, I would pick something like either an H9 would work great, or a Boss GT1000 or an HX Stomp, because then I can have that in the loop of the amplifier. I'm just going with simple pedals here. You know, I'm not thinking quad cortexes and stuff. More small. Then I can have reverb, delay, all that multi-effect stuff. And I could do that with an H9. I could do it with an HX Stomp. I could do it with a GT1000. You know, done. Truth be told, I could probably do that, and it'd be like, you could, you know, pretty much cover just about any gig with that rig. Oh, here's Ron with his Rand, excuse me, with his info about his carpal tunnel surgery. Tiny incision at the base of my palm. Didn't feel a thing. Went from hand randomly going numb, stressful in bike and soloing throughout the day to full functionality. That's really cool. You know, now you're making me think. It's like, because I don't really like going numb, like significantly numb, because I do feel a little nerve stuff sometimes. And you're making me think, like, did you notice increased dexterity? Like, were you like, oh yeah, like I could play faster trilling or something? So interested in this, by the way. So any information you can give me. I've got the PT15 IR, and it's the most convenient and inspiring amp I've ever had. That's so awesome. Was afraid the upcoming bigger PT would start gas, but I'm no metal guy, and I have a 100-watt plexi as well, all covered. Yeah, that's the thing. You know, we'll do more with amps, but it's like you kind of got it. Like you could, you know, you don't, right? I mean, I feel that way about the PT15. It's like, well, if I had this forever and I work for the next 15, 20 years, and then I'm ready to retire, that'd be just fine. So, you know, it's always fun to push ahead and do new things, but, you know. Did I miss a super chat? I don't think I did, but maybe I did. I don't think I did. I think I got them all. Sorry, tell me if I did. What else? Have you reviewed the TCE Plethora? No, I haven't. Is that a kind of a multi-effect pedal? I haven't. Have you ever seen Pink Floyd live? I never did, man. I kind of missed the boat. I guess. You know, would have been great to see them like Delicate Sound of Thunder or something. That would have been probably, you know, doable for me, but I didn't. I wasn't really a fan, you know, I'll say. I came to Pink Floyd later, much later. And as I, you know, we talked about this a little while ago on my show. Like, I feel like as an adult, I grew to appreciate them more because it's kind of adult music, you know, isn't it? Like, I wonder that, like, how many fans of Floyd back in the day in the 70s, like, what was the age, you know? There's probably some of you guys have seen Pink Floyd out there. Not, you know, I'm talking, but back in, like, say 87, pre-87, like, was there a lot of kids there? Was it a lot of teenagers? I'm just wondering, like, you know, was it that kind of thing? Because wasn't my jam back then, honestly, you know, but I got it later. And now I love it, you know. It was just so mellow and kind of, you know, spacey at times, and obviously a bit dark. And you know, the 80s to me was like Van Halen. I want to go to 1984, you know. I want to go to that show, you know. Look at all the people here tonight. That's kind of where my head was at in like 1984, you know. Like, I was you know, I wanted to party and have fun. Have you ever eaten elk? I have not. That's not something that I did. Yes, high school kids all over Floyd. That's cool. Yeah, it's just a little bit more cerebral, you know, and so it was probably the smart kids, you know, that went on to do well in college and stuff. I was hanging out with all the knuckleheads. Yeah, you had to be into psychedelics. Well, I don't know. Like later, I get that in the early, you know, like you know, obviously they came out of their psychedelic phase with 73, 74, and then it just sort of transitioned into much more of that. By Dark Side of the Moon, to me, it's a much more of a, not really about that. Am I wrong? I mean, by The Wall, not really. Like, I know that they've always had that reputation, but by then we're getting pretty cerebral. It's the kind of show that, although, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of weed going on, but it's not the kind of thing that, you know, no potheads, it says here. Really? No, there must have been. Come on. Like by the late 70s, you know? I don't know. What do I know? Because I wasn't at the show. You guys will know. Animals is really cool. Animals is amazing. Interesting. Like, so many people think, I hear this, you know, but Animals people are like all about it, you know? I'm Dark Side of the Moon. That's my favorite Pink Floyd album, but it's like Back in Black to me, you know, it's flawless from beginning to finish. It's just flawless, you know. Not that I'm saying any other, you know, when I think of Animals, I think of it like I think of Sgt. Pepper's as being the Beatles, you know. That's the, you know, or it's Super Unknown by Soundgarden, you know. And then we've got Down on the Upside, which is also brilliant, but more like the White Album to me. Or, you know, like I say with the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's, and then you got the White Album, which is friggin' brilliant. But Sgt. Pepper's is to me the, you know. So this is the way I think of Animals, you know, but I'm not as big of a Pink Floyd fan as probably some of you out there, although I love them, you know, just kind of the way I feel about it. But do you set your DAW tracks to stereo or mono for recording from a rig running stereo time-based effect? Stereo, you know, if I'm specifically, oh, I see, dual mono tracks then render in stereo. Generally, I'll print a stereo track. It's just easier within the session. You're saying, do you have like tracks 1 and 2 pan left and right? You kind of have to do that in Luna. You know, there's no other way around it. But I haven't used Luna a lot lately. I'm still back on Logic and using it a ton, at least for the time being. So in Logic, yeah, long story short, I'll set the track to stereo. That's it. It's just easier to kind of keep track of. So, in my opinion. My Desert Island Discs says my knees hurt or kill them all. I need 3 copies. And Animals. That's cool. That's a neat mix of music, you know. I think, you know. I was talking about Kill 'Em All last night. I mean, for early Metallica, for me, Ride the Lightning is actually the album, not Kill 'Em All, but Kill 'Em All is really cool too, you know. I'm just Ride the Lightning is vicious. And then Master of Puppets is like that's their Sgt. Pepper's to me, actually. And I know the Black album and everything went on huge, but Master of Puppets is nothing sounded like any of those records actually at the time, did it? I mean, they pioneered something, and Master of Puppets was a pinnacle of because it was kind of like Back in Black, where it got a little more refined sounding, but it was still raw, you know, and just like great songs and, you know, brilliant. The refined was a good refined. It wasn't too much, you know, in my opinion. So, yeah. What do you guys think about that? I don't know. Ride the Lightning says previous username. Yeah, it's such a cool record. It's just a little more vicious and raw. But then Master was like, this is amazing, you know. Would you suggest latest Apple Mac Mini or latest Apple 14-inch for music recording? I got the bigger laptop, but you could use either. You know, they're so powerful now for recording. I was more concerned with video editing, to be honest, with the speed of the computers when I looked. The Mac Mini is definitely great for connectivity, and there's no doubt that it's made for creative, you know, be it video or audio. It's amazing. But you can do so much on these laptops, man. Like, I've got a nice kind of top of the line for the time iMac that I'm on right now from 2016. I got the recent, you know, I guess it's a 16-inch laptop, and it's light years speed wise ahead of this iMac, you know. So at some point I'll transition to getting a monitor in here and using the iMac as my primary machine, my only machine. Maybe probably get rid of this iMac, and my previous laptop is toast because that's why I got the laptop. But anyway, long story short, it's got an M1 processor and the M1 Max or whatever, and 32 gigabyte RAM, and super fast. Like I can do 4K video, multiple streams of, you know, multicam video playing at the same time in that computer, and it's killer, you know. Bree says, yeah, 14-inch M1 Pro is very good, all you would need. The great thing about the laptop is then you can take it with you, of course, you know. So you can always get a internal an external monitor, you know, to run with your 14-inch, you know, kind of have that bigger computer feel just from the monitor, and the computer is so powerful with the 14. Get a dock maybe, so you can just run one of the Thunderbolt outs to the dock, and then take the computer with you if you're traveling somewhere, going and you want to do music somewhere, you know. It's just nice. Yeah. Vincent says, I think you meant Mac Studio. Yeah, they're basically calling them. That's right. I mean, sorry, I get it mixed up. I'm not your Sweetwater sales engineer, and I'm also not a Mac expert. But so I mix up things. But yeah, they don't call it the Mini anymore now, do they? They call it the Mac Studio, but it's kind of a replacement for a Mini, isn't it? Yeah. Natasha saw Metallica open for Ozzy in '86. Yeah, I saw Metallica in '86 as well on the Master Tour. We had like 4th row floor or something, and it was killer. It was right after Jason Newsted had joined. I got backstage and I met them. I met James and Kirk and everybody. I remember it was like, you know, it was super like lax kind of security vibe, and they let us in. I don't know why, but anyway, we met those guys and got them to. I had a tour program, you know, the Master Tour program, and I clearly remember Jason flipping to a picture of, because they'd printed up these, you know, before Cliff had died. You know, I mean, it was that recent, and so there was all the pictures of Cliff in the book. And he flipped to the Cliff's kind of page, you know, in the book, and he signed it, you know, Cliff RIP. He was very like, I handed it to him, so would you mind signing my, you know, and he went right to that page and just did it like automatically, which I thought was a classy move, you know. Always remember that. Yeah, it was 86, right? I think 86. It's 1:48, but I'm having fun, so I'm going to keep going. And there's 438 people online. I don't want to leave you folks on a Sunday here. So, have been able to get a good Phase 90 sound from the Mobius. Pretty good. I don't know if it's as gooey as my original, you know, but the Mobius surprises me every time. I can get in there and kind of tweak it and be like, that sounds just fine, you know, where I'm like, I've never felt that way about any flanger for the EVH flanger sound other than the Mobius, where I got so close in the Mobius that it was like, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much, it's not exact, but it's so close that who cares? And that's the way I feel about a lot of the effects of the Mobius. The Univibe, you know, true vibe people will be like, oh, come on. But it's like, I don't know, man. It kind of sounds good. And in the band, it's like, you know, I used to use it with Melissa Etheridge. on, you know, stuff that Philip Chase had done with the Vibe, and I thought it sounded really good. I don't know. I mean, it seemed to do the trick. So Mobius is a great, really, really useful box. You may have seen Guthrie got COVID. Are you taking extra precautions when you're out and about? Yeah, you know, the touring these days is a little bit like the Wild West, and every band is different, and everybody approaches it differently. So you're definitely at a risk out there to get it, and so many people respond differently to it. You know, it's a crazy thing, as you guys know out there. You know, I've known people that have died. I've known people that had no symptoms. It's across the board, just kind of a crazy, you know. So what do you do? You know, my personal feel on it is that everybody got to the point where it was like with touring, it was like we gotta go. Like you're seeing it these days, that everybody's out touring and the crowds are huge. People just want to live and go do their thing. And you know, that's just a human nature thing, I guess, you know, without, you know, take all the, you know, there's so much drivel really around this subject when it comes to, you know, people's opinions and stuff. I'm just talking about human nature stuff and not political or anything like that. So what I personally try and do is these days I still wear, you know, masks on airplanes and stuff like that. You get on a bus with a bunch of guys, it's like you're in this thing and it's just gonna, you know, and that's where you hear the stories, oh, so and so and the crew, and 3 guys on our crew, you hear it all the time, right? It's like it almost seems like it's inevitable if you're gonna go out and tour, you know. So you know, I'm a science guy, 100%. So I'm a firm believer in, you know, vaccinations and stuff like that. But I'm also not a believer in stopping your life. So this is more than I've ever spoken about this on here. Probably going to inflame some people. Just be cool in the comments section. I'm basically saying, like, you know, I'm a guy, like I'm a science guy, so I'm all good with that. I'm actually going to go get a booster, I think this week, but I'm also not, you know, stopping living my life, and I'm going to go on and have some fun, play some rock and roll, and hope, you know, for the best. But it wouldn't surprise me if, you know, being on tour, if somebody, you know, and then everybody deals with it different. It's like if you know, somebody gets it, what do? Do they stay in the hotel and you carry on the road, and they stay there for 5 days, or all the different? Everybody's different about it these days. So yeah, it's just a different thing. But anyways. Blinding me with science. I love that song. So anyways, yeah, I don't want to get into talking too political about it, because I can already see some comments, but it's like, you know, I talked to a guy just the other day that without mentioning, he's a crew guy, and he's like, dude, I almost died. And I've known people that have died. It's not funny. But this guy, you know, he was really close. And I said, well, tell me what happened. He told me the whole story. He ended up in the hospital for a number of days. And about day 2, he's like, I thought I was gone. I thought I was a goner. I didn't see a way. He's like, I've never felt like that in my life. You know, and we talked a lot about it, you know, and he was, yeah. So, you know, it's, and this is a healthy looking dude that's like fit, you know. And so, you know, I've heard all kinds of stories, you know. It's, you got to go at it, you know, you got to live your life, right? But you got to be, it's just like, it's like anything else. It's kind of, it feels a little like riding a motorcycle. Like that's what touring right now feels like. It's like, you know, yeah, I know there's accidents and high fatality rates and stuff. I'm going to go and ride that motorcycle, but I'm going to ride with leather, and I'm going to wear a helmet. You know, it feels a little like that's what life feels like right now, to be honest, doesn't it? It's like a little different these days, you know. So what are we gonna do? You know, I'm gonna go ride that motorcycle. So yeah. I'm not actually gonna go ride a motorcycle. Have you seen my eyes? You don't want me on the road with a motorcycle, so that's not gonna happen. But I'm talking about the I'm blocking somebody here that's putting stupid. God, have you guys noticed recently, like with everything, are you guys getting a lot of spam calls, and a lot of like more spam calls than ever, and more? I just saw a news article on it the other day, but you see the crap show up in the chat here. Like, I'm always curious, like where it comes from, the you know, the spam, you know, girls kind of spam that shows up in the like, how do they find you, you know? But anyways, it's such a pain. If anybody's got T-Mobile, I think AT&T has one too. You can get a spam blocker now Just a little bit of, if you don't know, because you probably get the same, scam likely calls, and all that we all get, right? Well, there's an app that I downloaded from T-Mobile. I didn't even know it existed until the other day, and it's pretty great. I'll find the name of it here. So if anybody's got T-Mobile, it loaded in my phone, put it in a weird place. That's the other thing that happens. You guys ever get that where you load it up and then, where did it put it? It put it in some weird. There it is. It's called Scam Shield from T-Mobile. And look at that. So see how it says it's on and it's blocked 23 spam calls. So it just runs in the background, and anything that comes up on your phone, if you're a T-Mobile user, if it comes up on the phone as saying scam likely, it's going to block it automatically. It's never going to go through. I've noticed a incredibly significant, obviously blocking 23 calls over the last week or so, a real significant decline in the amount of BS that I'm getting on there. But I'm also getting a lot of texts, which sucks, where it's like, are you coming to clean my living room soon? Stuff like that, where it's just like phishing, they're trying to get you to answer, and it's just like so crazy. But anyways, Travis says he gets spam calls on his work phone, not on his personal. Yeah, you're lucky. It probably just hasn't gotten into the, some sort of list that got sold, and it's just kind of, it's crazy. But B Scott says car warranty, solar power, spam call fest. It's endless. Yeah, for sure. It's difficult, isn't it? It's crazy. Lawrence says, how do they think anyone will respond to that stupid kind of spam? I think it's a lot of older folks and, just people that aren't quite as hip to it, that they prey on, and they hope for the best. And, it's a drag, spam bots. Yeah. 3 to 5 spam calls. It's a bummer, Oh, Rand back with some more information about his carpal tunnel. This has been really helpful. I would lose all feeling. Oh, that's bad. Yeah, it started happening more and more, especially when waking up in the morning. Shaking hand vigorously would help a little. So yeah, it's just that nerve in there, I guess, getting blocked in your, that narrow kind of. I feel like I'm kind of slight, like the way my build and that, the pathway that the nerves and the tendons go through and stuff. I feel like I don't have a hell of a lot of. There's not a lot of leeway in there for, just my build. I'm sort of slight build. And yeah, I get curious about the carpal tunnel thing, So how long was your recovery? Like until you felt like you were back 100% after the operation? And could you play like pretty soon after? And if you don't mind me asking, I don't want to be pushy, but if you don't mind asking where you had it done, and if you feel like if you want to, anything you want to share, because there's a lot of people out there that, it's a scary thing, especially if you're a working musician, but any kind of, person that's having that problem and you had a great result. I think it's anything you can share is really useful. Yeah. What else here? Let's see. BB Zonka says, do you have any recommendations for amp plugins beyond your signature? Sure, absolutely. Any of the neural stuff seems fantastic. The archetype stuff, that if you want clean stuff, the Corey Wong. If you want dirty stuff, go Jira. Exceptional. The Soldano plugin from them is exceptional. I quite like the Friedman DS40 is something I found really useful from Brainworks. Used to be a UA exclusive, now it's not. It's available native. The AC30 from Nembrini, great. Very few AC30 plugins out there, so it's one of the only, and I find it's excellent. Helix Native is really good. It's got everything in there, and you can probably make a whole record with it. So, yeah. There we go. There's a bunch of plugins. Check them out. We still want that amps in the zone for the AC30. I know I will do that. It's going to have to happen later in the fall, though, because I got to go on tour. So a little bit about tour, guys. I'm going to be out. If you want to come see us play, I'll be all over the place in the Midwest and the East Coast with Five for Fighting starting on next Thursday. and running through about the 13th of August. So it's a bunch of dates, about 19 or 20 gigs, I think. We've got one in Nashville that got added now as a fly date that's on the 20th. It's a little bit later on, so I'll come home and go back out and do one. Yeah, so lots of good stuff there. What else? I'll probably make a little, like, I wanted to do it the other day, but I had an issue with my gear. I had an issue with the Matrix power amp popped a fuse, so I was starting to film a little like fly rig a video, you know, about my rig and stuff, and then I just had too much stuff to deal with trying to solve the problem. So you know, I got involved in that. But anyway, I will come out with a video and stuff to show you that and how I'm doing it. Matt Beckley, longtime listener, first time caller. Does everybody know Matt Beckley? He's the famous Matt Beckley. No, we used to be road buddies. Would see each other when he was playing with Katy Perry, and I was with. Oh, he doesn't remember, but I do. When we first met, we met in Paris on the set of Ta-Ra-Ta-Ta in 2008. I was with Roger Hodgson from Supertramp and Daniel Powter playing a version of Two of Us by the Beatles, and he was with Katy Perry. That's right, Matt Beckley. And then he went on to be engineer and editor extraordinaire, and he's my buddy, and occasionally we get together and have beverages. No clinics while on tour, extra income. Not anything set up right now. Yeah, I didn't jump on that, but quickly after tour, I get into September in the lovely German countryside, doing some clinic stuff. I don't know about the countryside. I'm going to be in Mannheim, a guitar summit, doing a clinic. So it's a little bit of clinic stuff coming up in the fall. I still have to develop the clinic, but I've had too much on my plate, videos and things to get done, and then also some sessions and stuff, and then now this tour, learning songs, etc. So the clinic will get developed in the last 2 weeks of August, and then come September, I will do it. Good times. It's 2:01, but I've got 452 of you here, so I'm not leaving yet. I'm going to hang for another 10 or so. Travis says all the neural plugins sound great. Agreed. I think they all sound really good. Natasha's talking about Dr. Champagne. I like that name. Orthopedic surgeon in Mesa, Arizona. That's I would assume for any sort of carpal tunnel, that type of thing. Recommending this doc. Yeah. When you go on tour, do you miss your friends back home? You know, truth be told, not really. I'm just kidding, Matt. Of course I miss you. The Matt Beckley. I don't know. Where do you know Matt Beckley from? Are you the Matt Beckley? Are you more famous than I know you are? Because I know you're kind of famous, but I don't know how famous. Going to Twin Cities. We start in Minnesota, actually. Yeah, so it's the first gig, really. I think it's next Friday. I just don't. The venue is on fiveforfighting.com. Any and all questions can be answered about the tour as far as dates and tickets and stuff at fiveforfighting.com. Under the tour section, you will find all the dates there. And we will be there next week. Come on out, next Friday night, weekend. Come on. Woo! Summertime. Yeah. Power amp problems. That's what Dave was referring to last night on Steve Fryett's show. Did he say something about that? I might have called him in a bit of a panic. Yeah. It's funny. My gear problems are so funny, man. They're not like like I say, it's not the amps blowing up or something like the, you know, tube amps and stuff. It's always like some friggin' like, oh, the power supply in the switcher went, or the, you know, it's crap like that, like random stuff that can't be fixed easily or quickly on the road. And it's always like, I hadn't thought of that one before, that was going to happen. Oh, the MIDI on my RJM MIDI switcher box doesn't switch anymore. The MIDI, really, it still powers up, still works, but won't MIDI switch. Okay. It's always something. Aren't you doing something with Samurai guitarist and Rhett? Yes, that is happening as well. That is a thing. I need to look more into the exact dates of that and tell you more about that. But yeah, that's how Samurai is doing an event down in somebody's asking me if I can list the cities. Okay, I'm gonna go to the website 5forfighting.com. but I will go. I'm here for you. We play Friday, July 22nd in Burnsville, Minnesota, at the Ames Center. Does that make sense to anybody out there? This is a long, like, here, I'm just going to put the in the chat here. Here you go. That's the easiest thing to do. Click right there. I just put it in the bottom of the comments. You can find it, and you will find all of the dates. Please come on out. What are your thoughts on trapeze, tailpiece, and bridge versus tunematic? I'm a tunematic and stop tailpiece kind of guy. The trapeze always seemed like kind of a, I don't want to say janky, but it's a thing. But I don't know. Maybe it's got its devotees. I like the two-post thing, Cage. Here's more. We were talking about cage system earlier. Seems to be based on picking out all the triads for a chord across the neck, relating them to the open chord shapes we all know. Yeah. I mean, that's how I always is that what caged is? It seems like that's what it is, which is cool. Seems very valid for, once when I was at MI, I remember talking with Nick Nolan, great guitar player and my private instructor during my year at MI. Everybody's assigned a private instructor that you take a lesson with once a week. And Nick was my private instructor. And he said that I remember, had spent like 3 months doing nothing but playing arpeggios. He just thought, I'm just going to play through changes and just play arpeggios. Kind of the same idea. It's like you're getting used to the chords in any one position and those shapes, using them as, using them chordally, using them as dyads, using them as single notes. And it just kind of applies so that as a chord progression's flying by, you can think and see the notes on the neck in a way that's not a scale. It's a little bit more of a, here are the chord tones. Oh, and then any notes. Because when you think like that, when you think a little bit more like the chord tones, I find as long as you land on the chord tone, with a few exceptions, as long as you resolve on a chord tone, you can kind of play anything around it. And so you tend to think less scale, 3 notes per string stuff. And you can play 4 notes on that string and approach from a half step below and do all this kind of stuff where you sound so sophisticated, but you're really just seeing the notes of the chord, and then you can kind of weasel your way around the notes of whatever chord progression you're playing through, and the chords as they're flying by, in a much more, melodic way than thinking about scales, in my opinion. So. Hopefully that makes sense. So I think that's the advantage to the whole cage thing. It's just another way to kind of, it's another way to think about it like that. But it's arpeggios and chord shape, right? I don't know. Peter Evans says, great Sunday show. Thank you, man. Thanks for always being here. I appreciate it. Any videos this week before you travel? I'm going to film. After I get out of here, I'm going to go for lunch right now. And then I've got pedals here on the floor. And my goal is to make a buttload of videos on these pedals over the next 3 days and film it all. And then once I get out there, start editing. So I don't know what I'll get out this week, but I will get something. Probably more likely what I'll get out is more content that I shot at the Sweetwater Gear Fest. I did a video that's kind of geeky, but hopefully will be useful and interesting to some on Shure Wireless, and how to pick the right wireless for you. Because I think that that's a difficult thing for many people. Like, I want to get a wireless, but I don't know which one, GLXD, or do I get the SLX, or the, all the different models they have. How do I know which one to get for, I play in church. I do tours regionally around this 3-state area or whatever. No, I'm touring the whole US and Canada, and we're maybe going to go to Europe. I aim to answer some of the questions of which one you should get. And so we shot a video on the, at Gearfest on that. Also, I did a video on the Atreides kind of loosely, and I've got it here. I want to make a video with the Atreides pedal from Way Huge, I think, and just kind of combine it with a bit of footage from in here, as well as what I did, just kind of fly on the wall in the booth at the Sweetwater Gearfest with the George Trips, and show the pedals, because it's really cool. So some of that stuff. Sorry, I can't be. First thing I'm going to do is this, because this fella, nice folks at Crazy Tube Circuits in Greece, he's been waiting for me to do a video on this. They make all great pedals, and this thing kicks ass. So I want to get that done for him ASAP. So gonna eat some lunch and then do that. I should probably go so that I can get on with that. But are you going to the Taylor Hawkins tribute in September? You know, I don't know. I don't know if I'm around, to be honest. I don't think I will be because of, I think I'm gonna be in Germany, to be honest, for some stuff. So depending on what I've got going on, I know the 3rd I won't be around because I'm playing in Malta on the 2nd. Malta. It looks amazing. I can't wait to go. But it's basically, I mean, I could probably hop, skip, and a jump from Africa right there. So I'll be on the 2nd in Malta playing a show. And then after that, by the 9th, I find myself in Mannheim, Germany for Guitar Summit. And then by the 16th, I think I'll be at Thomann, close to Nuremberg, for their event. After that, I think maybe the 2nd show in LA, maybe it is I thought it was the 27th or something. So we'll see. But it's a little bit, I'm a little foggy on my September still and where I'll be and stuff. So we'll see. We will see. Is your backup gear identical to your main rig? It depends. Once again, it depends on the tour. If I'm out on a big tour where I can take everything that I want, yes, generally speaking. Although, like touring with Kiyoshi Negabuchi in Japan, I had my full pedal board, 2 cabs, 2 heads, the whole 9 yards. But then I also had a Helix rig that kind of copied it and would run direct to the PA. That's how I did backup on that tour, because I thought if anything goes down out here, my pedal board goes down, the amps, the fuse blows, something happens and it's dead. I need to go fast and get. So then the Helix was always XLRs out to the PA, in-ears ready to go, and a very similar sort of sound, as close as I could get dialed up in Helix. And I would just have the plan, it was sitting there on the keyboard riser. And I'm like, if anything happens, whip that thing out on the stage, put it in front of my feet, and we switched to that. So yeah, I guess not exactly. But what I do is in the Helix, for example, this is a good thing to do with a backup rig, I think, is I had my cabs basically duplicated. So 212 closed back, G12H cream back 75s with 57s. That's what we were using on the Kiyoshi tour. I used the exact same cab sim in the Helix to kind of, because that final filter is such a big thing. And when I would switch from the Helix to my big full-blown rig, I go out with a wireless and stand out in an arena and have them A/B. And it was like, I remember the crew chief looking at me just going like, sounds kind of the same. And I was like, I know, it's really close. It is really close. You can get really close these days, especially when you're out in an arena and you're listening to the sound of the room and everything echoing around. Sure, if you get a little bit more, the Helix does sound a little more like a modeler, a little more compressed, a little more of that thing, not quite the same, but it's so close that it's really good. So anyways, Cameron Smith is talking trash about Rhett Scholl. Come on. He says he's not a good guitarist. Actually, you know what, man? I totally disagree with you. I'm going to back up my friend Rhett. He's a really good guitar player. When I saw him play at the Sweetwater event, when I handed him my guitar and he was cold, he hadn't warmed up, and he played some stuff, we're not that dissimilar, to the way that we play. And he has great attack and tone in his hands, and kind of, he's a good, he strikes me as like a good sideman, working guy kind of guitar player. He sounds like he's got good rhythm. He came from playing in bands, and so I don't know, define what a good guitar player is. Good guitar player, he's probably got every bit of the technical skill that I do, and I think he's a really solid guitarist. That's what I noticed about his playing. And I told him afterwards, I said, when I revisited your like what you played at that, and I watched, I was like, you really sounded good, like, really he's a good guitarist, so Brian says Red has good chops. I agree. He comes from playing. He's a gigging guitar player. He's done a lot of stuff. He's done a lot of tours and gigs and played around. He's not an old. He's a lot younger than I am. So he doesn't have the same, just by the years of experience or whatever. But he's got a good solid, kind of. Travis says, "When will you play Moscow?" I don't know if that'll ever happen again for any of us, to be quite honest. I'm glad I played there once, one gig, saw the place, went there, did it, and probably never again. But who knows, but yeah, I'm kind of stay away from that part of the world right now. And yeah. All right, you guys, I should probably go. Jason says he's coming to the Raleigh show, North Carolina. That's right, Verve Pipe. We're doing some shows with Verve Pipe, so that should be really fun. Totally looking forward to it. It's going to be great. I had a great time the other day. I didn't really talk much about the gig, but we did a not a super long set. It was a 13 or 14 song, and then did an encore. And great way to kind of warm up into the tour. And John was really happy, John Andrazik, with the gig, and it felt great. First time we've all played together. Sean Hurley on bass, Randy Cook on drums. Just a great, I love playing with those guys. Terrific rhythm section, and so it was really fun. And I'm looking forward to getting out and playing. I'm a little rusty, so I need it. All right, everybody. This has been awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next week. I'll be on the road, so I don't know exactly where I'll be next Sunday, but I'll make it happen. If I need to modify the time or something, I will, but I probably won't need to because I'm just in the States. So, I can probably make it happen. Depending on sound check time and stuff, I might have to bump it up an hour or whatever, but I'll be here regardless next Sunday, and we'll figure it out, and it should be fun, do one of those, live from the bus or some sort of, maybe I can do a live stream where I actually show you the rig live or something in a kind of like, guerrilla filming fashion. I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, thanks, you guys. It means so much that you're here every week. I really appreciate it. Such a great group. You guys are the best. All your super chats and everything, I really appreciate it. Keep me in coffee for the next month. Okay, everybody, take care.